Yo, good morning, folks. Hello. Happy Monday. Another beautiful day in Dedham, Massachusetts. All right. What's going on? How are you? Another nice day, huh? Hey, what's up, peeps? Okie dokie. Let people stroll on in here. Happy Monday, folks. Happy Monday. Happy Monday. Bus stop live here. Not at the bus stop. Actually, last day of school is tomorrow. So I don't think I'm going to have any more bus stops because I got to be here the next 2 days. I got the babysitter going. Maybe she could do a bus stop live. You'd like her. The kids like her a lot, so that's good. And happy post-Father's Day to all the dads out there. Keep up the great work. What I like about our side is a lot of people celebrate Father's Day on this side, whereas on the other side, it's a very confusing day yesterday. Yesterday is a very confusing day. So we're here in Dedham, outside Norfolk Superior Court. We're going to walk over to the protesters. This is the biggest crowd I've seen so far, to be perfectly honest with you. We're going to cross right here, and there is a bunch of people there, at least 50 today. A sea of pink over there. And we're going to sneak up on them from the other side. As you can see, there's a whole bunch of them over there. All right. So anyway, guys, so I do this every day, every morning since October 11th when I got jacked up by the popo, just in case I get arrested again. It's turned into a tradition. It's just a kind of a way to talk about what we're going to do today, updates on the case, stuff like that. Man, it's been 8 months since I've been arrested, which means it's been way over a year since this whole thing started. And I made a post on Twitter today that I talked about with Mark Betterow over the weekend. Like, it's really bugging me. How did they find Jessica Hyde? On April 20th, the Norfolk County DA's office issued a press release stating that they were planning. Like, I wrote my first story about the Google search on April 18th. On April 20th, the Norfolk County District Attorney's Office issued this press release saying that they were going to refute the Google search. That they were going to they couldn't do it at the time. They couldn't explain away the Google search at the time, but they weren't dropping the charges, and they were going to refute the Google search. That's when I knew there was real corruption, when they weren't dropping after the Google search. I'm like, wait, the Google search isn't real now? What the fuck's going on here? So anyway, hold on. So anyway, that's how I knew things were fucked up. And they said it with such confidence on April 20th. Like, we're going to refute this. Like, they knew they were going to refute that Google search. Jessica Hyde's report doesn't come out till September 7th. It's 5 months later. So how could they be so sure? And that's my question, is how could they be so sure on April 20th that they were going to find an expert to refute that Google search? And how many experts did they go through before they determined that Jessica Hyde was their girl? There's no way she was the first. Like, how did they find her? Like, did anybody know that? And the defense didn't really ask that. Maybe they should hire me. They're doing a great job, but maybe they should hire me because I think of shit like that. And I would just ask, how did they find this woman? Like, there's no way she's like the first thing. Like, did they Google it? Did they go on LinkedIn? Did they just call 1-800 Google search person? Like, what do you do with a person like that? I don't know. But I just have a feeling that because it took 5 months for them to find this woman and put a report out, they had to have consulted with other experts who probably confirmed the search, because we know that because they weren't hired, right? They're not going to hire somebody that confirms that the search happened. They're going to hire somebody, right, who doesn't say it happened. And they're like, oh, we got this woman, this uptalker over here. She likes to talk about herself, and sure, she'll do. I just want to know what number she was. Like, how long did it take them to find this woman? Like, that's all I want to know. How long? What number was Jessica Hyde on their list? Like, where did she come from? Does anybody know the answer to that? But she testified that they found her through her website. Yeah, so they Googled it. But then, my question is, when? Because It had to be after April 20th because they made that statement on April 20th definitively, that they were going to be debunking that Google search. Like, it wasn't like maybe we will. They said that they were going to debunk. Hello, Jennifer. They said they were going to debunk that Google search. And, you know, they didn't say like maybe we will, we'll have an answer. They knew they were going to debunk it. So how the hell did they find that woman? I mean, it's like the logical question, right? How'd they find this woman? Either way, like David Yannetti once said, wait for us. We got experts too. And I think they're going to, and hopefully they're not going to come in with do-rags on or whatever she was wearing. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but, you know, just hard to take a woman seriously like that. But anyway, yeah, so it should be good today. Joseph Paul is got to deal with Action Jackson. I've heard from sources that he is going to get his asshole ripped apart today. Like, it's going to be bad. Like, Alan Jackson looked like he wanted to rip it apart on Friday. But Auntie Bab's like, no, we will wait. Save the anal penetration for Monday morning. And that's what we're here for today, to watch Joseph Paul just get his shit pushed in. So I'm looking forward to that. I'm told that the defense is going to open up on Monday of next week, but we'll see. Tomorrow's just a voir dire day. So there's really only 3 real days of court where the jury will be here and witnesses give testimony. Tomorrow's still worth watching because the defense's experts who have PhDs and work for the FBI or contracted by the FBI, they have to prove their worth to Auntie Bev. But the other idiots, like Joseph Paul, he just gets to pontificate as much as he wants. Like, he doesn't have to get voir dire or anything. We just take his word for it. The dude is an expert. So voir dire tomorrow. And then on Monday, Thursday, and Friday, we'll have real expert testimony, you know, in front of a jury. So anyway, let's see who's over here. I thought Tuesday was the voir dire. Tuesday's the voir dire. All right, here we are. Hello, Tom. How are you? Good, thanks. How are you doing? Good, nice. This is the biggest crowd I've seen by far. Look at this crowd.
Truth and Transparency's down there.
Oh, is she really?
Got a 50-inch TV in the back of her car.
Oh, my goodness gracious. Holy cow. Look at this crowd. This is a big crowd here today. Good morning, guys. How's everybody doing? Yes, I love it. Yeah, let's do it.
There you go, right?
There we go.
Thanks. Nice meeting you.
Nice to meet you too, brother. Oh, we have Auntie Bev is here. Auntie Bev, what's going on? Hello. Yeah, she's a good one, isn't she? She makes some good videos. I love Aussie Insider. So, what's happening? Oh, you got the fan. Oh, which one? Yeah, I heard Lane is here, right? Where is she? I'll see her down there. Yeah. I gotta go see this. We gotta go see this down here. Look at this crowd, dude. This is wild, man. You guys gotta come if you haven't come. Good morning. How's everybody doing? Nice to see you. I love it. There it is. Awesome. I love it. Yeah, look at this sidebar. Hi, Lena. How you doing? Good, thanks. How are you? Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
This is Lena from Truth and Transparency. YouTube. I think I had something to do with it. I think a little bit, but yeah, look at this. You got a whole. Yeah, I'll be inside. Yeah. So that's the plan. It's going to be a good one. No, I don't want to intimidate anyone. I don't want to intimidate. You know. Yeah, let's do it.
You're amazing.
Awesome. Thank you very much. Yeah, let's do it. Oh, picture time. Let's go.
I'm Denise.
I'm Aiden. Nice to meet you.
I'm the one that was on the Mass Pike that
Oh.
you took my picture.
Oh,
I go
that's
up by
from Wayland.
myself.
Oh, from
Yeah,
Wayland.
and
Oh,
I've
the
been going
Wayland.
up since January 29th every week.
I honked at you. Did
Yeah,
you
you
hear me
did,
honking?
and
Yeah.
you put my picture up.
Yes, I
Oh my
did.
God. Great,
Awesome.
thank you so much. It was
You're very
good
well.
meeting you.
Nice
Thank
to meet you
I'm
too.
glad I do what
Pleasure.
I do.
Thank you. A picture?
Yes.
Let's do it.
Love it.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Okay, who's next? Hold on, guys. I love you guys. Oh, we got a line? Okay. It's just a big crowd today, guys. Is there really a line? Get out of here. There's a line. Dude, this is wild. Hold on. Awesome.
Thank you.
Awesome. Let's do it. Sorry, guys. Awesome. This is wild. Good morning, everyone.
Good morning,
If you just
how are
got good. How are you doing?
Good.
It's gonna be a good day today.
Let's hope.
You guys are gonna love it. There's a big screen set up. This is wild, man.
This is our first
Noob,
day.
oh, welcome. Tell me if you guys haven't come on down. It's a big.
Yes.
It's a good time out here.
A lot of first timers.
A lot of first timers. Welcome. You guys are gonna have a good time today. You're part of something special here.
Are you coming, Lisa?
Peter Murphy's here. Excellent. You going inside today, Peter? Oh, but you're dressed for it. You're all dressed up.
Thank you. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too.
I need to shake your hand.
Aiden, nice to meet you. Nice.
You're listening to Karen Reed Murder Trial on Kingdom Radio.
You made that search at 2:27 a.m. because you knew that John O'Keefe was outside in your sister's lawn dying.
Closer.
That is an area of damage that I noted as area 1 in my notes.
Stay tuned to Kingdom Radio Texas for live coverage of the Karen Reed murder trial. What's up, fam? What's up, Joe Lanou? What's up, Johnny Coxron? Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning. It was an eventful day yesterday. Where are we at? There we are.
Boy, you fighting the man yesterday and got you a victory out here.
Yeah. There's really probably about let me take this back. There's probably about 8 people that are in this little room, and usually they talk and they do their own thing and they make their own laws, and there's no one really there to say, hey, hold on, that's bullshit. What are you talking about? It's just them, and they say, hey, what do you think about this kind of no one's allowed to have a fence closer to here? All in favor? I okay, pass. And they're passing like 6 or 7 things like that. Hey, who thinks that, like, on the little road that's coming, Joe, you've been to the house, that little road, that back road that comes into the house, the speed limit's 55 miles an hour, which is, what are you going to do? But they're like, no, we should change the speed limit to 35 miles an hour. And so that was one of the things they were talking about yesterday. Like 35 miles, it's not a school zone. It's like a road where it's a country back road, like a normal country back road where there might be a sharp turn that you says, hey, caution 35 on this sharp turn, but mostly they're 45 or 55. But they're like, no, we think it should be 35. It's like, I don't know. There was, when I was there, Laura and I were there last night, and they started bringing up this billboard. They did not, because we already got into them Thursday. And then last night I started getting into them about the liability and taking down our property value and blah, blah, blah. So basically the compromise is no one is allowed to have a billboard larger than a 4x8 piece of plywood if you're advertising someone else's business on your property, like what a billboard would do. And if you're advertising your business on your property, you can make that some bitch as big as you want, but it has to advertise a business that's being conducted on that property. So basically no change, everything's good. And with Kingdom Radio and Kingdom Christmas lights, with Kingdom Radio, shit, that the billboard could have any damn thing on it. You know what I'm saying? So no restrictions yet. I look for them. There was 2 people that were very upset. There was an older lady that's a pillar of the community, in her final years of, management here. But she was not she said, I wanted all the billboards to go, and this gives a loophole for people to still do billboards. And I'm just like, whatever. So I think there's a ticking time clock that says you better get that damn billboard built pretty quick before they make an amendment to it next month or something. So we're on the clock, but so far so good. If we make something, we'll be considered what they call grandfathered.
So is this a HOA or like a town ordinance or a
City
county
council.
ordinance?
City
Oh,
council, yeah.
oh, so you're in the city. Okay.
So,
Government at work.
well, you say city. It's the
Are
place.
they not an incorporated city?
Well, when you say the word city, you maybe in your head you think, oh, it's some city. This is a city, but it just got incorporated in 2017. We're on our first mayor. I don't even think there's been a second election, but the first election, the mayor was voted in with 38 votes.
Oh, okay.
The city council election that we were helping out our neighbor, which didn't win, last one, the person who gets the city council or city alderman, they were voted in with 20 votes. 26 votes was the amount of votes. So there's only 400 and some people in the place that we live, but it is considered a city. So there are laws about what you can do and can't do in a city, even though the city doesn't have any building codes. They don't have any fire codes. They don't have any restrictions or ordinances because they just got started. So in the city hall meetings, they're taking ordinances from other cities and saying, hey, this city has, they're talking about no mobile home parks and manufactured communities or whatever. So they're just pulling other cities, that have been established, and they're saying, well, these are what the other cities are doing. Maybe we should just copy and paste what they're doing and pass these ordinances. So
Yeah.
they're trying to get some building codes, but there's been a lot of stuff happening, like the billboards or the neighborhood that just came in across the street, and they have no rules or regulations. And the people who know what they're doing in real estate are completely taking advantage of Plantersville. But
Wow.
yeah, another one was no vape shops that they were talking about last night. There's no vape shops allowed in our city because, well, not that there isn't, because they do sell vape pens at the gas station. So therefore, we don't need any other place that sells vape pens, and it contributes to children having vape pens in the school systems. That's what their argument was. And they also sell marijuana paraphernalia. So they don't want that in the it's
it sounds like, so you can do the history where I live. It's Walkertown, North Carolina. I was born.
You pronounce it Walkertown?
Walkertown.
Yeah, Walkertown.
It was nothing but farmland. I swear to you, nothing but farmland. And that was like in the, from the 70s when I was born all the way up to like the mid to late 80s. And now we've got Walgreens, CVS, we've got a Sheetz, and they're popping up everywhere. I mean, it has grown, but it all happened after we went incorporated.
Yeah.
All that being said, we found that some of the town council, they are the older people, kind of like your lady there in your area. And they was like, no, we're not going to have this. No, we're not going to have that. Well, they wanted to build apartment buildings. And they were like, okay, we'll build apartment buildings. Well, when they got into the codes, they were saying, well, we don't want Section 8.
Mm-hmm.
And then the county come back and said, no, you can't do that. You cannot discriminate. At that time, they had already poured the footings. This ball was already rolling. So they had to allow for Section 8. I lie to you not. Within a month of them opening up those apartment buildings, we were down there on some kind of call 4 or 5 times a week at night, all the damn time. And they were like, well, why is all this happening? Y'all are not doing enough on crime. It's like, whoa, wait a minute. I'm sorry. I'm not trying to stereotype or open up a door. But when you bring in Section 8, you're bringing in lower income people, and you're bringing that kind of stuff in. And now they went back and built this nice apartment complex, literally like an 1/8 of a mile from this other one, but they upped the base rent to like $800. So somehow or another they got away from that. But it's kind of like, be careful what you ask for. But you're talking about being incorporated into a city just a few years ago. You hide and watch this. Your city's gonna blow up now. Since it's now, quote, a city, it is my point. Like, we went from nothing to now we've got everything you want: restaurants, We got vape shops. The only thing we don't have is a ABC store. They will not allow anybody to have an ABC license here in the town. But
Well, I mean, it's a reactive type of legislation that's going on here. They just see something they don't like and say, "Oh, damn, I haven't done nothing." There's nothing proactive. Like, let's just look at what a city that's about our size has in place, and let's just start with that shell of incorporation of just basic ordinances. They just started with 0, and they're just kind of being reactive.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you. Well, we got
they'll probably adopt the IBC or the International Building Code. Almost every city does that. They may strike some portions of it, but that's what they'll. And all the cities do that. Copy another one. Hey, this has worked. Or it's what they really should be looking at is ordinances that have been tested by court cases, and they're tried. In other words, they won, and adopt those to keep themselves out of litigation. But yeah, that's what happens. You incorporate, you put a little government body there, and that government body starts telling people how to live. That's the way it works.
Kind of like
What's
HOA.
interesting is what you say. Kingdom is like 400 folks, and like literally 30 or 40 people are deciding, these decisions, or who the councilman is. You're in a good position there. You could influence how that city grows. Think about it. You get 15 other people in that town that vote that feel the same way you do. You're stronger than the city council.
Oh yeah. I mean, I personally don't have a future in, politics, but I mean, there's 25 people at the bar at the corner that I could probably muster up enough support to put anybody into mayor.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
You know what? I think if you went in there with 25 or 30 people about, hey, we don't want you telling us we can't have a billboard on our property. I bet that would go away.
Well, truth be told, I'm not a big fan of people telling me what to do. Like most people aren't, but once you have a billboard, it's kind of in your best interest to say no one else can have one, because then it brings up the value of the billboard you currently own, because you have to pay that money. For example, the billboard that's on the corner, I talked about it yesterday. It's just, for a small town, it's way overkill. It's a huge ass 30 by 16 billboard, and there's 2 stacked one on top of each other, and it's facing 3 different directions. So there's 2, 4, 6 of them. And since they're sold in halves, there's actually 12 individual real estate for billboards, and there's $6,000 a month. So it's 70, and it's completely full. So there's $72,000 a month on this billboard that only takes up a 5 by 5 piece of real estate that is a lifetime lease on it. So you're talking about like, well, that's what I was saying last night. That doesn't change the property value. I'm like, bitch, $72,000 a month is about the income. They're like, well, your 2 minutes is up. And I'm just like, but anyway, it's like, the fact that one person has this increased value on their commercial property, and that this other property cannot have a billboard, that will prevent what businesses want to actually acquire your property and do business there if you can't have a billboard. I mean, there's going to be there's grocery stores and Chinese food and gas stations, and there's different businesses that if you're not allowed to advertise your business with some kind of street sign frontage, that will deter people from wanting to go there and indirectly decrease the property value, or the amount of people that want to sought after that business, whether it has a billboard signage or not. And then they're like, well, I don't see it that way. And it's like, because none of y'all own a piece of property on 105 like I do. That's why you don't see it like that. My next door neighbor, check this out. My next door neighbor bought his property for $190,000 4 years ago. It's a 7-acre piece of property. His property is on sale as of last month for $1.2 million. My next door neighbor. And we got 5 acres, and we got probably the same thing that he has. The only difference is he just put a billboard in last week, 2 weeks ago. And so I'm trying to tell him about the value of the billboard. And then they were like, well, I don't see, there's always a winner and a loser. I don't see what's going on. We just don't like the billboards. But then the bill that they passed, that you can do whatever you want on your property, as long as it advertises what's on the property. they're so stupid. They don't realize that the way the billboards work is they do the lifetime lease. So you just get a 10 by 10 piece of property. So they do, or they buy it and subdivide that piece of property. So they do own the entire property, and it's just a 10 by 10 piece of property with an easement to get on it on in another property. So technically, in theory, they do own the entire property. You know what I mean?
Well, if your business is advertising,
I
then
know.
yeah,
I mean,
yeah, it doesn't
like,
make any sense.
they said the other town's billboard policy or whatever their ordinance was 26 pages long. They proposed last night a billboard ordinance that's 2 pages long. So it's like, so I was like, this is not really getting anywhere, and anyone with half a brain can get past it. But I promise you, it will not be like that for long. They're going to figure out a few ways to amend this and tighten it up. Anyway, but that's just something that goes on with most local politics. And that's what we're dealing with right now. But you got to get out there and you got to get it done, because like everyone says, real estate they're not making any more of it. And when you have these small towns that you can do whatever you want to, it won't not stay like that for long. It will get bigger. It will get tighter. There will be more restrictions. Even though you have an unrestricted property in the middle of the country, it won't be country forever. All the people are coming to you. It's going to be built up, and they're going to say, I like it this way. I like it that way. Govern me harder, daddy. And so we need to get this billboard up. So that's the process we're doing. And I'd like to get this billboard up. And on the billboard, I'd like to have Kingdom Radio and the stuff that we're talking about, as that right now there's 16,000 people a day moving one way past this billboard space. I'd like to actually put 2 of them, a big one up and a couple small ones, and start advertising Kingdom Radio and stuff like that on it. So,
hey, question/hint.
Oh, what's up?
Do you have power on this property?
Oh yeah, it's already pre-run.
Oh,
yeah.
Cool. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I was going to put Christmas lights on it, and but the Christmas or holiday lighting business that we're in, I only need to advertise that like 3 months out of the year, and then the rest of it, I mean, what do you want to advertise Christmas lights in the summertime? Give me a break. So yeah, I think we're going to advertise that maybe 2-3 months out of the year, and then about December switch it into advertising something that we're personally doing. So I think that's going to give us a lot of reach as people are driving by. And some of these, we're talking about building up these podcasts and different things we're doing with a billboard. I mean, you can even help put someone in the office just by putting their name on the billboard.
Yeah.
So,
wow.
But yeah, that's what the future is over here. And I think this piece of land that we have, commercial property, I think the billboard will make more money than a little, tire shop or something.
Yeah, I'd say now you don't have people coming knocking on your door wanting to know if you want to sell your property.
No, we already have that. Yeah, we already have that. We've been having that.
Okay.
Yeah. No, now that they're building this huge neighborhood with $800,000 houses next door, and they're putting all this commercial land in, our property is like right next to it on the other side of the street. So we've been having a bunch of people asking to buy our property. And I think the best thing to do is just hang on to what you got.
Yep. They're not making any more land. And
Yeah.
now houses now are on top of one another.
Yeah. Yeah. I'd like to trade it in for to be honest with you, I'd like to trade it in for a lake. If you want to trade the highway in for some waterfront property, give me 5 acres on the lake and stuff with a little boat and stuff. I think about just retiring and riding off in the sunset, but I think I have another 10 more years of hard labor before I'll see the sunshine like that. Look at Big Ron. He's getting ready to start prepping some ribs on his end. Big Ron was talking about he was making this Indian food, this curry and marsala. So Big Ron said most people, one thing that a lot of people don't know about him is he is like a professional chef. And I don't know if he wears the Joe Lanu apron, but he's definitely a professional chef situation behind the scenes. And he also wanted to let us know that he bought his property for $189,000 and it's already doubled. So buying real estate, I never thought in my life I'd ever have it, but somehow it happened. And, it's one of the best decisions I had, except for marrying Laura.
Plug to Laura.
Yeah, exactly. Deeks. So anybody see the Boston Celtics win the NBA championship last night?
I did not.
No?
Yeah, I missed that one.
Yeah, well, I know I turned it on at the very end, and then Laura was like, I don't give a shit about basketball. What the hell? Why are we turning that shit off? Right down the road from our house is Kyle Field, Texas A&M, and Texas A&M broke a record over the weekend. Does anybody know about that?
Sorry, I don't.
Nope, don't know about that either.
Well, that was from a young man by the name of George Strait. George Strait.
I did hear that.
Yeah, George Strait had a concert over the weekend, a record-breaking concert, a record-breaking attendance, actually. And I thought
he beat Grateful Dead's record, right?
Yeah, it's the greatest, it's the biggest attendance in the history of America.
Yeah, I did hear that.
It was
King George.
He did.
I can
it was
see that.
110,000. I mean, this is Kyle Field. There wasn't a. I mean, I have a picture. Let me share this one right here. Here's like a picture of Kyle Field where Texas A&M, but it was fully packed, and then the outside crowd, I think it was 110,000 people were there.
Jeez.
World record, American history record.
I tell you what, he hasn't done a concert in a long minute. I imagine a lot of people just want to get there and see him because he may not do another one.
That's what I thought in Dallas when he did the Cowboy Rides Away. It was supposed to be his last, tour, and it was so expensive. But he just shows up whenever he wants to. And just think about that. You just show up at 110,000 people, world record, biggest concert attendance in the history of America.
Yeah, man, but it's King George.
I know, but he's not even like an entertaining. If you've ever seen George Strait in concert, he doesn't like dance around and do a bunch of Garth Brooks type of shit. He just sits there and plucks on the guitar and sings. He don't move around. He don't do nothing. And
I've actually seen him in concert. He's not bad, but it was back in the I guess it was in the 80s when he was doing concerts all the time. But George Strait's pretty solid. He's well loved in Texas. That's for damn sure.
Yeah, this is where the cowboy rides away. I heard about Texas A&M baseball fans making fun of other teams' bat boy that passed away. 2 of them got kicked out and banned from the College World Series. Yeah, the College World Series, in Omaha, Nebraska, our friends in Omaha that are in the Christmas business, the College World Series is like the only thing going on in Nebraska, besides the bitch-ass Huskers. But, yeah, I didn't hear about the Texas A&M baseball fans making fun of the other team's bat boy that passed away. Huh.
Yeah,
Just when you thought you heard it all.
We got we started to get schooled on how particular the military is. So most of y'all know my girlfriend's son's going into the Navy, so I had to drop him off at the recruiter's office yesterday morning at 9. They took a bus down to Charlotte, North Carolina to MEPS. He aced his I guess the big test. So when he got to the paperwork, so he was we were a little bit slow on getting his ID, but anyway, North Carolina DMV printed his ID, and coincidentally, the card came in the mail yesterday after he was already in Charlotte, but his recruiter brought him home last night because they did not print his ID on a blue sheet of paper. They printed it on a white sheet of paper. That is the only reason why he is not at MEPS today. So supposedly he goes back tomorrow because his actual ID card comes. But I'm like, what difference does it make if it's on a blue sheet of paper or a white sheet of paper? Well, apparently with the Navy, it does.
And I think there's something about blue ink or black ink or something. There's something about that too.
Well, I know in law enforcement, we were not, I say allowed. We got our hands slapped if we use blue ink. We had to use black.
Yes, that's what I'm talking about right there. Hey, here's some I don't know. I was looking at something with these freaking dogs. Check out this dog, man. I mean, can you believe this?
I'm telling you, dogs are smart. Oh, that's pretty cool.
Yeah. I was like, can you imagine this son of a bitch? You're sitting on the couch having a beer, and then this son of a bitch is like flicking rubber bands at you. You're like, feed me, boom. So anyway, we're waiting on the Karen Reed trial. The FBI crime experts are supposed to be on the voir dire today. This is what it looks like inside the courtroom. I promise you're not going to miss anything. as we're shooting the shit and just covering whatever. Look at Big Ron. The blue paper thing has to be a MEPS thing.
Yeah, that's what they were saying. So I don't know, but he's got his card.
Hang
now.
on, I'm confused. Are you talking about it's a temporary ID, like a paper ID?
Yeah, they printed it because they had to make his actual card and mail
Right.
it. So they printed a temporary. They printed it on a white sheet of paper. When he got down there, they said, "We can't take this. It has to be on a blue sheet of paper. No
I
lie."
wonder if that's something from the state. So that's official. I don't know. I've never heard that. It's kind of weird.
It may have been. I don't know.
It seems like it'd be difficult for the
Good morning,
military to tell
Council.
the state how to print their IDs.
Well,
Yeah.
Are all of the witnesses here, Mr. Jackson?
They are, Your Honor.
I'd like to hear from Dr. Russell first. Are you both prepared to?
Your Honor, I'm so sorry, I could not hear you.
I would like to hear from Dr. Russell first. Is that her name?
Russell, Dr. Russell, yes. The order would be, I would propose based on scheduling, Dr. Russell, Dr. Wolf, Dr. Rachel.
Okay, then that's good because that's the order I prefer. So,
Yeah, I want to have it in my order.
do you have a CV for her? Good morning. Morning, Tori. Do you have a CV I could look at for her, please?
Let me see if I have it in my notebook. I thought I did. Yes, I do.
She got that Burger King.
And she
thing
has
going
not
on.
written a report?
She's not.
You can have it your way.
All right, let's bring her in, please.
Your Honor, before we get started, can I get an understanding? We started to say it at sidebar the other day, and you said you wanted to put that off until, to get to the witnesses. But I need a little bit of an understanding of what the court's expectations are. My understanding of voir dire, which this seems to be unusual in terms of the timing of it.
The understanding of the voir dire is this is for the Commonwealth's motion to exclude this testimony. All right, that's what we're here for, the Rule 14 violation.
Is that the same with Dr. Wolf and Dr. Rachel?
Well, I thought that would help both of you. The Commonwealth has nothing on that, and you say you haven't been able to even talk to them at all about this case.
That's correct.
So I want to find out if they have any credible, competent evidence to put forward. So we'll have a voir dire on them as well. But
So
for
that-
Dr. Russell, what we're doing here today is there's an alleged there appears to me to be a violation of the reciprocal discovery obligations of defense counsel regarding Dr. Russell. So let's hear from her today to see what the appropriate remedy is for this violation.
So my intention is to ask her so I have, the court understands my sort of guardrails. My intention is to ask her what her qualifications are, which is that's the basis for voir dire. And that's where I'm going to stop. I'm not intending to ask her what her opinions are, conclusions. I'm going to ask her if she's come to opinions and conclusions, but I don't want to have to examine her concerning her full opinions, her full conclusions, what she's based those conclusions on. It's unfair. We've provided the defense the prosecution, everything that we need to provide to them in terms of disclosure. They've got the equivalent of a report. They've got a summary of what she's going to testify to.
When was that provided? My order was 1 week from the start of trial, right?
Well, we didn't, Your Honor, in fairness, they didn't even finish their discovery 1 week before the start of trial. So it's a little unfair for us to be put on the same.
1 week from the filing of the certificate of compliance.
Well, I don't know when I can't remember. My co-counsel indication was the day before trial.
Okay.
So during the course of, look, the trial is a dynamic thing. During the course of the trial, I did not know who Dr. Marie Russell was at the time that they filed their certificate of compliance. We then attempted to and did give them the reciprocal discovery that we were obligated to do after they filed their certificate of compliance.
When?
Within 3 days of that. We had been giving them information prior to that, but at least within 3 days of that. We've continued, so the record's clear, we've continued to get additional discovery from the Commonwealth in notices of discovery throughout the trial. They have not finished. In fact, during the trial, they interviewed Jen McCabe, apparently, had a full interview with her. Lieutenant Tully took a report, dated the report, and then they held on to that report until after she testified. interview, the report, and the completion of the report were all done before her testimony.
Do you need to call her again?
Your Honor, I'm not. That's not my. And I think the court understands. That's not my point. My point is not. I need to call Jennifer McCabe back. I've done the damage that needs to be done on Jennifer McCabe. The point is,
I'm sorry, I missed that. You've what?
I've done the damage that needed to be done.
I've already made her
I don't
look
need to
like a
call
damn criminal. I don't need to call her back up.
That what's good for the goose is good for the gander. The Commonwealth doesn't get to stand in the position of piecemealing and feeding us information, reports, discovery throughout the course of the trial. And by the way, when we then got seminal information about an expert that we did not know about, never met, never heard of, within 3 days of that, we provide everything that we have about that witness to the Commonwealth. They can't then turn around and say, oh, well, it's all the defense's fault. So we want to have a voir dire, which means that the euphemism for that voir dire is we want to have two bites at the apple.
Okay.
We want to be able to completely cross-examine her, then go back to our expert. And if she testifies,
Why is she
cross-examine
shaking her
again
head?
after consulting with our expert. That's two bites at the apple. And that's
She
not-
doesn't want an actual doctor
Dr.
expert.
Mosey
They
Russell
want this
qualified
state police expert that don't know their ass from a hole in the ground.
That, I believe, is the parameters, the proper parameters of the voir dire, and that's what I'm prepared to do today. But I wasn't planning on getting into the substance of her testimony because that's been provided. And I don't think Mr. Lally should be able to get into the substance of her testimony because he knows what the substance is because, like I said, that's been provided.
All right, so I disagree. I'm going to hear from the Commonwealth on this. Is it Ms. McLaughlin or Mr. Lally?
Your Honor, just briefly in regard to what counsel was referencing with Ms. McCabe, it was not a full interview by Lieutenant Tully. It was and I don't have it on me at this moment, but I can give the court a copy of that report. But essentially it was Ms. McCabe met with Lieutenant Tully, looked at some video and was asked a single question. That report wasn't available. I didn't have it until after Ms. McCabe testified, but it was given to counsel prior to Lieutenant Tully testifying, and there were no questions asked of Lieutenant Tully in regard to that. My issue, and I wasn't asking for a voir dire as it proposed to, as it relates to Dr. Russell, is that we first heard of Dr. Russell on May 21st, which was, I think, 6 weeks into trial.
Right, so that's what I asked, and you told me it was 3 days after the beginning of trial, Mr. Jackson.
No, Your Honor, I said this at sidebar the other day, and I just said it again today. I let the Commonwealth and the court know about Dr. Marie Russell 3 days after I learned about her, which was the 17th of May. I think it was the 17th of May. I had never heard of her. I didn't know who she was. We made contact. I determined that she would be useful for the jury in terms of specifically the injuries to John O'Keefe's arm. I then had one conversation with her, then immediately, within 3 days of that, turned that information over to the prosecution. So I didn't say that I gave this over 3 days into trial. That's not what I said.
All right, but you were ordered to do it. Ms. Gianetti, what was the date? What, you had 1 week
She
from
does
when?
not want these FBI experts in there. It just blows the case up.
Yeah, really.
So it would have been, I believe, April 15th. So what we knew as of that date, we were required to turn over.
All right, I need to take a quick recess.
What? All right.
Oh,
John, what do we got here, bro?
well, like he said, I mean, shit, I don't know. I mean, and I've seen cases where stuff comes in while the trial's going on, but it's kind of like a he said, she said type thing now. I don't know, but if the judge said it needed to be in by X date and then it wasn't, but then he didn't know, I mean, what do you do? I mean, the judge has got to make a decision.
Well, another thing is she should have stopped this case a long time ago. And if you bring in a witness that proves that point, that won't look good for her. So I can totally see why, she doesn't want to bring anything that's going to blow this case up. it's already bad enough. Let's just bring it to the jury and get it over with.
Yeah.
I'm not sure what to think here, but it looks like the prosecution or the Commonwealth has just been bringing up witnesses that the defense had no idea who they are. In my opinion, is what I've heard. But when the defense tries to do the same thing and bring up this surprise person, oh, by the way, I got this person, that ain't flying.
And I mean, she had, unless I've missed something, she has seemed to be a fair judge. So if that is in fact the case, I don't understand why she's
Jim, the Commonwealth's motion, the Commonwealth's
disagreeing with him.
What's she saying? Hold up. The Commonwealth's motion, what?
I didn't hear. I was running my mouth. I'm sorry.
Never mind, Jim.
Paper 360.
You in Massachusetts now, boy.
All right, so the Commonwealth has moved that I exclude the testimony of Dr. Russell based on a violation of the reciprocal discovery obligations of the defense. So I do find that there is a violation of the reciprocal discovery obligations of Rule 14. And I'm quoting from the notes, the importance of this, the reporter's notes to the old rule. And as you all know, we're in the process of updating that rule. But the very integrity of the judicial system and public confidence in the system depend on full disclosure of all the facts within the framework of the rules of evidence. To ensure that justice is done, it is imperative to the function of courts that compulsory process be available for the production of evidence needed either by the prosecution or the defense. So what we're here to do today is decide a remedy for this violation. And that's why we're having a voir dire. I am not prohibiting the Commonwealth from anything on their examination of witness Mr. Jackson. The alternative is she doesn't testify. So the Commonwealth has not received the appropriate discovery from this witness. So we're going to have a voir dire and they can ask her anything that they think they need to ask her. So those are the parameters of this morning.
As long as I know the guardrails, that's fine. I just to close the loop on the record, my understanding, and this little can probably speak to this more intelligently than I can, but during the middle of trial, there was a witness that we had never heard of, we did not know and didn't have a report for.
Who is that?
Dr. Fowler, F-A-L-L-E-R.
Okay.
If the court remembers, is buried in the middle of about 75 witnesses. So he testified to alcohol levels, et cetera, and protocols at which institution? At Good Samaritan. And we didn't have that information either. We didn't throw a fit. They said we were going to provide this information.
You get what you get, don't throw a fit.
As soon as we know that we're going to call him, he's going to be on our witness list. We didn't know one way or the other what he was going to say. We didn't have a report, and we went on about our business. That's what we were doing as well. And by the way, I would note that the notes and report under Rule 14 require disclosure of information you have. I just don't want the court to think that we were sitting on information that we didn't turn over.
No, I'm not saying that. It's just, this isn't as if it were something that the Commonwealth brought up and you needed to scramble. This is entirely of the defense position. So,
I understand.
All right. So that's the big difference. So why don't you go ahead and call her?
Okay. May I be excused to call her?
Yes.
Why would you want a crash expert with a PhD that's hired by the FBI? I mean, why would you want that when you had this Massachusetts State Police guy that said he hit the taillight with the arm, he flew 30 feet, did a somersault after doing a 360 and hitting his head on the curb? I mean, that made total sense. But the thing I think was most interesting is he was, thank God, he was training someone that day. He came up with that.
Yeah. And, I can't help but think has the jury already made their mind up? They're just listening now.
I think a long time ago, back when you had your Brian Alberts and your Jennifer McCabe's, and back when you had all those people in there,
You solemnly swear the evidence given in the court, the case now hearing true, the truth.
jury made up their mind a long time ago. And Lally is not very good at present. He's so monotone and boring. He's not engaging the jury. So just on that one alone, they just want to hear the defense talk, just like us.
Yeah, like yesterday. All right. I'm
Every
gonna let
day.
y'all go ahead and go.
Ask you to keep your voice up, speak right into that microphone, doctor, okay?
Yes.
Thank you. All right, go ahead, Mr. Jackson.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Without the
Good
jury, the
morning,
judge is a
could you please state your
bitch.
name and spell your last name for the record?
Yes. Marie Russell, Russell.
And I'm going to echo what the court just indicated. The air conditioners are on, so please keep your voice as elevated as possible and maneuver the microphone however you need to, okay?
Okay.
Dr. Russell, what do you do for a living?
I am a retired emergency physician and forensic pathologist.
And tell me what education you have, going all the way back to the beginning, that qualifies you as an emergency physician and former pathologist before you retired.
Okay, well, I've had about at least 16 years of formal education beyond high school. Initially, I started at MIT, where I did my pre-med courses. I had always wanted to be a physician. And so I went to MIT for a year, took pre-med courses. And then I had an unusual life event in that my mother came down with cancer and she subsequently passed away. During the time away, so I took some time off from school. During that period of time, I decided to explore another interest of mine, which was law enforcement. And so I took some courses in law enforcement and I became a full-time police officer here in Massachusetts.
What years were you at MIT?
That was 1972 to 1974.
Did you go to the police academy?
I did. Once I became a police officer here in Massachusetts, I attended the Boston Police Academy where I graduated.
What year was that?
That was in 1977.
During the course of your training as a police officer, did you have any specialized training in hit and run and accidents and investigations?
Yes, I did.
And which agency did you work for as a sworn peace officer?
I worked for the city of Malden full-time for 7 years.
That would be from 1977 to 1984, approximately?
Correct.
During that time, did you continue your education in any way?
I did. So I took as many courses as I could from the Massachusetts Criminal Justice Training Council, which included a several-day course in hit and run accident investigation. I took courses in forensic photography and numerous other things. And then, and I also at the same time continued to go to college. And I did that part-time, where I eventually got a bachelor's degree of science in psychology with highest honors.
What institution was that from?
That was from Northeastern University.
And that was a Bachelor of Arts in Psychology?
I think it was a Bachelor of Science.
Got it. Subsequent to your Bachelor of Science degree from Northeastern, did you also advance your education further, formally?
Subsequent to, so yes, so I decided that I did want to pursue a medical career. And so I then attended medical school, University of Massachusetts Medical School full-time for 4 years.
Did you ultimately get a degree, an MD degree from UMass?
Yes, a Doctor of Medicine degree in 1987.
So you were there from 1983 to 1987, is that right?
That is correct.
And did you do a residency?
I did. I did 2 residencies, actually. Most people do 1, but I did 2. I did, my first residency was a combined internship and residency for 4 years. And I did that in Los Angeles at Los Angeles County Medical Center, which is a very big trauma center. And what I would consider the Bellevue of the West Coast. Very busy.
You say that just because of the volume at USC Medical Center?
That is correct.
Is it one of the busiest medical trauma centers in the country?
Yes.
You were there from 1987 to 1991, is that right?
Yes, I did my ER internship and residency during those years. Yes, there.
During that time, were you seeing patients?
Oh, yes.
You were treating patients?
Lots of them.
You were attending to patients?
I was a trainee, so I was seeing as many patients as we could. There was always a waiting room full of patients, and yeah, so I saw many patients during that time period.
Did you indicated a second residency? Tell me about that.
Okay, so I still realized I had an interest in forensics, and I decided that I wanted to also train in forensic pathology. So I did a second residency in anatomic pathology, 2 years, followed by forensic pathology fellowship at the Los Angeles County Coroner's Office for 2 years.
And the years, if that's 4 years, that would be from 1991 to 1995, approximately?
That is correct.
Tell me what your experience was as a fellow at the Los Angeles Coroner's Office, Los Angeles County Coroner's Office.
Yes, well, it also was a very busy coroner's office. And so every day there would be cases. I probably did at least 2 cases a day, most days, and plus conferences and educational opportunities. But the interesting thing about being a fellow is they try to give you a wide assortment of cases. So, for instance, I not only saw numerous victims of gunshot violence and stabbings, but I saw numerous victims of motor vehicle accidents and natural death, overdoses. And then if there was an unusual case, it usually went to the fellow, because the fellow was also being supervised. So
did any of those unusual cases, and we'll get more into this in just a second, but did any of those unusual cases include animal attacks?
Yes.
Did you become a professor, an educator at any point?
Yes. So during my 29 years at LA County Hospital, during the last 25 of those, I was a assistant professor or an instructor, but mostly an assistant professor. And what that meant is that I was responsible for overseeing the care that was provided by the interns and residents. So when a patient would come in into the hospital, the emergency room, they were oftentimes usually seen by the intern or resident, and then I would go and subsequently see that patient also. So, and that was in addition to my own cases. So I'd see my cases and their cases.
And that was at LAUSC, correct?
That is correct. And
can I ask a quick question?
Yes.
LAUSC, for those of us who are not necessarily familiar with it, is that associated with the University of Southern California Medical Center?
Yes.
That's the school, in other words, the site.
Yes. So it stands for Los Angeles County / University of Southern California Medical Center.
And that's where you were an assistant professor for the majority of the rest of your career.
Correct.
Were you also an assistant or an adjunct professor at Cal State Los Angeles?
Yes.
Okay. For how long were you an
Based on the qualifications
believe
we've
that was
seen so
4 or
far, she's
5
already
years.
qualified times 10.
And I taught criminalistics, forensic medicine.
I think that's what the
As an
problem
attending
is.
physician in the ER, in other words, a supervising physician in the ER.
Damn, this
tell us
woman's
what
got
some of
it.
your duties and responsibilities included, especially as it pertains to trauma, and then I'll get more specific in just a second.
Okay. Well, so I would oversee the care of all the patients that came in during a particular shift. And that would include medical patients and trauma patients. And as I mentioned, it was a very busy trauma center. So we had lots of trauma patients, including the types of violence I described earlier that I saw at the coroner's office, but lots of motor vehicle accident victims, because there was a highway there right nearby. There were a couple of highways, so a wide variety of accidents.
Did your supervision include assessing, diagnosing, and treating patients?
Correct.
In terms of the middle part of that, diagnosis, was part of your job to determine the cause of injuries? or to at least assess the cause of injuries?
Yes, and I took that on a little bit more because I was interested in the forensics aspect of the injuries.
The forensic aspect.
Yes.
Okay. During your time at LAUSC, even after you left the Los Angeles coroner's office as a fellow, did you continue to stay in contact with the coroner's office and have relationship with the coroner's office as a supervising physician?
I continued to stay in contact with the coroner's office, and I used to attend their conferences as often as I could, not as a supervising physician, but as a physician and a graduate of their program.
During your tenure at LAUSC, did you ever become the director of any programs at LAUSC?
Yes.
Does that include the director of Center for Life Support Training?
Yes.
What years was that, if you remember?
I don't remember that.
The early 2000s, late 90s?
Yes, that sounds about right.
Okay.
And we would conduct lots of courses, including trauma, life support courses.
Did LAUSC incorporate a quality improvement program?
Yes.
Within their institution?
Yes.
Did you become a director of that as well?
Yes.
So you were director of Center for Life Support Training and director of LAUSC Medical Center Quality Improvement. Is that right?
The quality improvement was for the emergency department.
All right.
Yes.
You cannot put her on the stand,
You also
dude. She's
became the
gonna
director for
outrank
jail
every
Oh, yeah.
witness.
Yes.
She
What
gonna
is the
tell Jackson to sit
association
down.
between LAUSC and the very, very expansive jail system in Los Angeles County?
So LA County Hospital was unique in that they many, many years ago developed a jail, what they called a jail ward, which was a combined inpatient, outpatient, and ER. So there was a dedicated jail ER. And that has been in existence for probably about 70 years now. And patients that were placed under arrest by either LA sheriffs, LAPD, California Highway Patrol, or any of the municipal agencies in the area, and I think there were about 70 or more municipal agencies, could bring their patients to the LA County jail ward where the patients would get treatment.
Ultimately, you became the director of that entire program, correct?
Yes.
Did you also
It's a
work with
badass
the
grandma, dude.
State
Badass
Medical Board
grandma.
of
You
California
ain't lying. I
in
like
any
her.
capacity?
Yes.
Tell us about that.
For about 7 years, I worked part-time for the California Medical Board as a physician assigned to one of their enforcement teams. And I did that 1 day a week, and I did my other job at the county hospital the other 40 hours a week.
So you didn't take off
Jeez.
time from your duties as an ER physician, as an emergency physician. This was in addition to you being an emergency physician.
That is correct.
Did you hold the title of chief medical executive for the California State Prison System, specifically at Courtroom?
Yes.
Tell us about that.
So I retired from LA County Hospital, and I went on to move on to the the California Department of Corrections and Rehabilitation.
And what year was that? Did you make that transition?
So 2018 is when I started for the state prison system,
Okay.
and I worked there for 5 years as director of their medical service
So you
in
were
Corcoran.
I'm sorry. So for that prison, within that system, you were the chief medical executive for the entire agency, correct?
That is correct.
All right.
For the entire prison.
Understood. Are you board certified in emergency medicine?
Yes.
Are you a member of the National Association of Medical Examiners?
Yes.
Are you a member of the American Academy of Forensic Science?
Yes.
Do you have any publications in the area? And I'm going to be very specific because you've been relatively widely published. Is that right?
Yes.
Some people would say yes. Some people would say no.
More than a couple of publications.
Correct.
And peer-reviewed journals, correct?
Yes.
I want to focus your attention on animal injuries. Have you been published in the area of animal injuries specifically?
Yes.
Do you recall those publications?
Yes, they had to do with law enforcement dog bites.
Did you draft an article or co-author an article called Managing Law Enforcement Dog Bites in the ER?
Yes, I was a co-author.
1996.
Sounds right.
And that was a peer-reviewed article,
Yes,
Okay,
ultimately
cool,
published,
awesome.
yes,
and ultimately available to be cited by other doctors and studied by other doctors, correct?
correct.
Did you also author or co-author an article entitled Law Enforcement Canine Dog Bites, Injuries, Complications, and Trends?
Yes, I did.
Is that in 1997?
Sounds right.
Was that also peer-reviewed?
Yes,
And that publication was also available for other physicians throughout California and throughout the country to refer to for the study of animal bites and dog bites, correct?
dog bites, yes.
Dog bites. Concerning animal injuries, during the course of your professional experience, how many patients have you seen, diagnosed, and or treated with animal injuries, including dog bites and scratches, if you had to estimate?
Many hundreds.
Would you say it's over or under 1,000?
I would say it's over 500. I don't know because we didn't keep really good records back in the earlier days.
But it's safe to say you've seen hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of dog bites and scratches.
Yes, in my 29 years at LA County Hospital, yes. And my dog bites I took care of and dog bites that the residents took care of, yes.
And you've even published articles and studied, not just seen them, but studied dog bites and dog wounds, correct?
Yes,
Yes.
Lisa, she does.
Have you qualified as an expert previously in other courts as in emergency medicine?
Yes,
Have you qualified as an expert in other courts in forensic pathology and wounds?
yes,
Has that been in both state and federal court?
yes.
Doctor, were you asked to review certain materials related to this case?
Yes,
And that was in furtherance of coming to, if you could, come to an opinion or a conclusion about injuries to the victim in this case, a person by the name of John O'Keefe.
yes.
What did you review in anticipation of your determining whether or not you could come to an opinion or a conclusion?
Grab
So
your
I
popcorn.
reviewed hospital photographs, autopsy photographs, an autopsy report, grand jury testimony from the medical examiner in this case. There may be some other.
Based on this,
I just want to ask about that. Do you have notes with you as to what you reviewed?
No.
Okay, so when you say there might be other, you don't.
Well,
If he tells you what you reviewed, you'd know it.
I would recognize it.
All right, but I want to hear it from you. You
Oh, I
you
see.
don't know of anything else
Okay.
that you've reviewed? This is sort of important, Mr. Jackson.
Okay.
Can you think of anything else, doctor,
The
besides
autopsy.
these?
Autopsy photographs, autopsy report, neuropathology report, toxicology report, and the grand jury testimony.
okay, so as you recall, the items that you reviewed include an autopsy report by Dr. Scortibello, correct?
Yes,
A neuropathology report by a doctor named Stonebridge, correct?
yes,
Toxicological reports associated with the autopsy,
yes,
grand jury transcripts from Dr. Scortibello,
yes.
photographs of evidence items, including a gray sweatshirt,
Oh, yes, yes,
and autopsy photos that were taken attendant to the actual autopsy.
yes. And photographs that were taken in the hospital. And I reviewed the hospital ER record also.
She looked over at Bev like, bitch.
So in addition to what
Slide
you just
over.
listed, there's also hospital photos separate and apart from the autopsy photos. Is that correct?
Yes,
And those hospital photos showed the injuries to Mr. O'Keefe's arm. Is that right?
yes,
And you also reviewed emergency room records that are attendant to his initial acceptance into the emergency room on January 29th, 2022, correct?
that's correct.
Based on your review of all of those materials, were you able to confidently come to any conclusions or opinions about the nature of the injuries suffered by John O'Keefe, specifically as they relate to John O'Keefe's right arm?
Yes.
What is your opinion and conclusion concerning those injuries?
Those injuries appear to be consistent with an animal attack.
Can you be more specific in terms
Boom.
of the type of animal, or are you relegated to simply an animal attack?
Well, they are consistent with a large dog attack. There's combination of both what I consider bite wounds and scratch wounds on the arm.
Uh-oh.
There were also some puncture wounds in that shirt.
Ooh.
And are the
So I'm sorry, puncture wounds in the shirt?
Puncture holes
Okay.
in the shirt.
She knew what she meant.
And on what do you base the
She's
opinion
mad at Bev.
that the injuries are consistent with dog bite or scratch marks?
Well, the patterns. There are several patterns of parallel wounds that appear to be superficial scratches that could have been caused by nails or could have been caused by teeth. There are different angles on the arm and different locations on the arm, and but they're generally oriented in a specific direction. And there's also an area, the distal forearm, which is close to the wrist, which shows what I believe is an arch area of teeth marks.
And what's the significance of the arch area?
Well, so the arch would be the front area of the jaw of the animal, or the dog in this case, where the teeth tend to be close together and curved. There's a curved pattern to the configuration of the teeth.
Let me have just a moment, Your Honor.
Yes.
I agree, Rob. She's not going to let this person testify. No way. No way. This blows the whole case up. All this bullshit they've been peddling for 8 weeks. There's no way that Bev lets this doctor, who clearly is the most qualified person to make a determination in the state of Massachusetts, testify. Just like they had to bring Alan Jackson from California and they bring this lady from California, these real experts. There's no way that Bev's going to allow this person to make a mockery of the evidence that's already been put on by the Commonwealth.
I changed my background back. That's a badass dog.
Doctor, I want to show you a series of photographs. May I approach you?
Yes.
But how can she not?
Well, the thing is that the fact that this is televised and we all can see it, everyone knows how damning this is.
Yes, I have.
Is that part of what you reviewed in coming to your opinions and conclusions?
Yes.
What is that a photograph of?
So this is a photograph of the decedent's arm near the elbow. And do you want me to describe what it shows?
Just briefly.
Okay.
Of what
Yeah, and it shows wounds.
Okay. Your Honor, I would ask that be marked as next in order of evidence.
All right, so for this voir dire, we'll have separate evidence, right? Is this an exhibit number in the trial already?
It has not been marked yet, so I'm fine with starting over, sort of for the purposes of the voir dire process, Howard.
So this will be a separate voir dire with separate exhibit, yes.
So it's going to be exhibit 1?
Yes.
Your Honor, I want to move this along. This has been marked, but I think.
Hold on. Okay.
I'm so sorry. This one of the 3.
Oh, he feeling good
has
now.
already been marked, but if just for consistency, I'd rather mark it additionally for voir dire.
Need a separate record for the voir dire.
May I approach?
Yes.
Even if it's not allowed, the whole entire country has seen it, and the jurors are watching this too. You know they are.
Oh, yeah.
And if you'd tell me the exhibit numbers that they are. So You're putting these in now. There's no objection, Mr. Lally?
For purposes of this, no.
Okay. So we'll mark these now, but
May I approach?
Fucking Dante, dude. Breaking news. After an exorbitant donation from MSP, Lexus admits taillights are made from dog teeth.
Oh God.
but what I want is the exhibit number at the trial.
I'll get that for you.
Exhibit number in the trial. There's no way she can say this lady can't be there. Oh my God.
Oh yeah, I think she's already made up her mind.
Okay.
You might as well just quit being a judge and just start being a prosecutor if you're not going to let this lady in.
Yeah.
You done lost all credibility as a judge, period.
Dante, I got to tell you, that's the hardest I've laughed in a couple of weeks. That was good.
Okay.
Yeah, Aunt Bev looks like she got the mop on her head. You know what I'm talking about?
Was the third one also in evidence, you said?
2 of the 3 have not been marked. I'll as soon as Madam Court reporter is ready.
She's ready.
May I just establish the foundation?
Yes.
The following 2 photographs that I just showed you, Doctor, do you recognize those?
Yes.
Did you also review those in terms of in furtherance of coming to your opinions and conclusions?
Yes.
Do they also appear to be different photographs of John O'Keefe's arm?
Yes.
I would move for the admission of both of those, Your Honor, for purposes of voir dire.
There's been no objection to them, so they're in. They're already marked.
I just need to know which one's 2 and which one's 3.
Yeah, doctor looks like she ain't digging Aunt Bev.
Yeah.
I think if we were at the Thanksgiving table, she'd be like, bitch, shut your mouth.
I'm sitting at the end of the table.
For permission, may I publish
Yes.
Exhibit 2 for voir dire?
Yes.
Is this a photograph of the of John O'Keefe's arm?
Yes.
Is this one of the several photographs that you reviewed in coming to your opinions and conclusions?
Yes.
I want to ask you a couple of questions about this. There should be a laser pointer on the desk.
Okay.
Can you explain for the jurors what it is about the injuries that assisted you in coming to your opinion and conclusion that this is from an animal attack?
Okay, there's several patterns here. So for instance, let's look here, right near the elbow, the exterior part of the elbow. There's these 2 linear marks, which appear to be from upper teeth, and 2 punctures below those, which are superficial, meaning they didn't go very deep into the skin, but they appear from the lower teeth. So that's one pattern. There's another pattern close to the shoulder, which shows parallel marks, these 2, and maybe a third one in the middle, parallel marks that are oriented at a certain angle. And these are superficial wounds, which are consistent with teeth marks. They also could be possibly consistent with nail marks, but
with what?
Nails from claw. Yes. We have some more here, similar from obviously different teeth involved or different claws, and then down here, closer to the wrist, we have an unusual pattern of at least 4 striations, the way I see it, at least 4 striations that I believe are caused from the teeth towards the front of the mouth, near the arch. It appears that there's an arch pattern here. So,
in a dog attack or in an animal attack, in your experience, and you can take this one down. Let's cover the ground on the 3 exhibits that we've already marked. Can we take a look at exhibit 1?
Yeah, there's no way you can let her testify in this trial. She's overqualified.
May I publish, Your Honor? Yes, I apologize. Is this just a close-up of the same injuries?
Yes,
And do these appear to be consistent with what you just testified to in terms of either teeth or claw marks, especially as it relates to the area closest to the elbow?
yes,
All right. And then looking at exhibit 3. May I publish?
Yes.
Is this a close-up view of the area closer to the wrist that indicated those parallel, you used the word striations?
yes.
All right, and these appear to be taken, attended to the autopsy as opposed to the other
Yeah.
photograph.
Chloe's sitting at home watching this going, "Whoa."
Is that right?
That is correct.
All right.
Looks
Or maybe
And would that
Ruh-roh.
difference account for
Looks
the
familiar.
change in the nature of the wound?
It could.
Photograph of the wound, I guess?
It could, or different technique. Yes.
Okay.
Chloe on the drive stick. Screw you, Lexus.
Did you take into consideration the lack, in coming to your opinion and conclusion, the lack of other injuries, for instance, fractures, broken bones, or deep bruising, soft tissue injuries?
Oh, yes.
How did that play into your opinion?
Well, so of course I considered, what else could have caused these wounds, before coming to my conclusion. And so I wanted to rule out other things. And there were no significant major bodily injuries outside the head. There was nothing, there were no fractures of the long bones, the chest, the pelvis, the arms. So yeah, so having seen hundreds and hundreds of car accident victims and people hit by cars, I ruled that out very quickly.
Okay. And in terms
So
of
there.
the injuries that
Your
you
brother
see,
was
especially
killed by
evidence
those
from
cops,
the
dog.
arm, based on everything that we've discussed today, is it your opinion, based on a reasonable degree of scientific certainty, that those injuries are consistent with an animal attack as opposed to a motor vehicular pedestrian incident?
Yes.
Thank you. That's all I have.
All right, Mr. Lally.
Good morning, ma'am.
Good morning.
Let me take you back to, you were talking about some police training that you had received when you were in the academy or while you were working with the police department.
He's trying to validate that bullshit training.
Yes.
Okay, what kind of training what did that training consist of?
Well, I attended and graduated from the standard police academy at that time. And then I took additional courses that were offered from the Massachusetts Criminal Justice Training Council. And these were taught generally by experts in their fields. And they were on a variety of subjects that are listed in my CV, included, the hit and run accident investigation, forensic.
There just for a minute, ma'am. Just doctor, in reference to your training.
Well, you asked.
On accidents, what did that training consist of?
Oh, well, mechanisms of how accidents occur, mechanisms of how to determine, what vehicle was involved in an accident. There, I don't, it was a long time ago, but yeah. So determining if people were struck by vehicles, what vehicle was involved, or if there was auto versus auto accident, what vehicles were involved.
And I don't mean to belittle this training whatsoever, but is it fair to say that that was relatively rudimentary training that you received in the academy?
Probably. I would not. Yes. Okay. Probably. If
You don't have any training in crash reconstruction or anything like that, correct?
that is correct.
And am I correct in you indicated that you're board certified in emergency medicine? Is that right?
That's correct.
And so you're not board certified in forensic pathology or anatomical pathology or any kind of pathology?
That's correct.
And the last time that you worked as a coroner, when was that?
The last time was in 1995 when I was doing autopsies for the coroner's office. I have since, though, consulted on some cases from the LA coroner's office.
What about 30 years ago? Is that about
Oh.
right?
For autopsy, yes.
Now, have you ever testified in a case in which either Mr. Jackson or Attorney Little were counsel?
Not that I'm aware of, no.
And when was it that you first were contacted in reference to this case?
The first contact was May 15th.
May 15th of what year?
May 17th, excuse me, of this year, 2024. Yes.
And you went through a list of things that you were provided and you reviewed, and you mentioned hospital photos, correct?
Yes.
Autopsy photos, is that correct?
Yes.
An autopsy report, is that correct?
Yes.
Grand jury testimony from the medical examiner, is that correct?
Yes.
A neuropathology report, is that correct?
Yes.
A toxicology report, is that correct?
Yes.
And then I think you also remembered some photos of some clothing items, is that correct as well?
Yes, a shirt. And
Anything else?
yeah, hospital ER record.
Hospital ER records?
Yeah, yes.
Anything else that you can think of?
No.
Did you ask for anything else to review?
No.
Yeah, Lally, you
So,
gave
any
a
other
witness just
materials
one thing to
available
look
for your
at,
review
just
that-
one
that you
thing,
weren't thanked
one
you?
text message.
Well, I requested that that I focus in on the wounds, so I didn't ask for a lot of material in this case.
But fair to say that you were looking for anything and everything, material to the wounds that you were asked to look at, correct?
Please say that again.
Sure. Fair to say that you would want to look at anything and everything that was related to the wounds that you were asked to look at, correct?
Yes.
And so, did you make any specific requests as to what material you were provided, or were you just handed some material or forwarded some material and you looked at what you were given?
No, I requested that I have the autopsy photographs, the ER records, the ER photographs. I requested those.
Now, you mentioned some articles that you had written that were published back in 1996 and 1997 related to dog bites. Is that right?
Yes.
Are those publicly available articles?
Yes.
And in those articles that you wrote, you were talking about law enforcement bites, correct?
Yes.
So law enforcement canine bites typically involve what people call sort of a bite and hold technique. Is that correct?
Yes. Yes.
So is there a difference between, through your experience and the hundreds of dog bites that you've seen, is there a difference between what you would observe from a dog bite from a law enforcement canine versus just your domesticated dog?
Well, yes. Now, the study, one of those studies was over 700 dog bite wounds, and there were two techniques used at that time: bite and hold, and later on, bark and hold, or bark and alert, or something of that nature. So there are different techniques, but yes, to specifically answer that question, which was, are they generally different from regular domestic dog bites? Yes.
Now, did you write a report in regard to your opinion that you testified to here today?
No.
Why not?
I don't think there was much time, and I didn't know if I was going to be actually testifying.
How long would it take you to write a report?
I wasn't asked to write a report, excuse me.
Were you asked specifically not to write a report?
No.
She was hired
Now,
by the
at any point in
FBI,
time, Did
dumbass.
you ever look at anything related to Mr. O'Keefe's head injury?
Oh, yes.
So you reviewed reports in relation to that, correct?
Yes.
Do you have any opinions as it pertains to that?
I would rather defer to the pathologist and neuropathologist on that.
I don't think he liked that answer.
Yeah, now what are you going to say, dumbass Lally?
So who contacted you about this case?
I contacted a district attorney that I had worked with in the past. We were discussing a different case, a case that I autopsied in 1995. And I mentioned that I heard that there was a case in Massachusetts that might have been being handled by one of his colleagues, his former colleagues, and that there was an issue of whether something was a dog bite, and that I might be able to help in that case to clarify.
And so when you were provided this material, what is it that you were specifically asked to do?
To look at the wounds and the reports and the materials that were sent to me and render an opinion.
And so before you had even been provided any material, before you had even looked at anything, you had already heard information related to there being a dog bite involved in this case, correct?
I had heard that there was a controversy, that there's some certain wounds could have been a dog bite versus perhaps inflicted by a motor vehicle. That's what I had heard.
So ma'am, what I'm really trying to get at, doctor, is sort of the timeline. Okay, so you hear about this, when was that?
Sometime just before May 17th.
So sometime just prior to that, you hear about some controversy in a case in Massachusetts involving a dog bite. On May 17th, you get reached out to by who specifically?
His name is John Lewin. He's an attorney in the LA District Attorney's Office.
And then who did you talk to after that?
I reached out to him. I said I might be able to clarify. And then he reached out to Mr. Jackson, I believe, and then Mr. Jackson contacted me.
And not asking specifically anything you spoke about.
I just want to say that Jackson didn't let me know in time. That's all he's trying to say.
Dog bites, correct?
He sent me the materials. He asked me my opinion.
Sent you the materials, asked you your opinion. When did you provide that opinion?
Probably the next day. Yes, I know it was the next day.
So the very next day on May 18th, you provided an opinion?
Yes.
And was that opinion provided in a written fashion, orally? How was that provided?
Orally.
So you reached out to someone shortly before May 17th, spoke to Mr. Jackson on the 17th, received all the material, and then had an opinion by May 18th.
Yes.
But you didn't write any of that down?
No.
Now, beyond the materials that you were provided, what else were you told about the case?
I was told that the victim was a police officer. The decedent is a police officer. I was told that the defendant had been charged, and I was told that that there was a controversy about whether or not these injuries had been caused by a motor vehicle. And I was also told, and I read in the medical record, that the decedent was found outdoors, I believe in the snow, and hypothermic.
Now, in regard to what you reviewed, you didn't review any investigative reports, is that correct?
That is correct.
You didn't review any witness statements, is that correct?
That's correct.
You didn't review any lab reports as far as from the forensic lab or anything like that?
I reviewed the toxicology report.
Beyond that, any other?
If it was part of the autopsy report, I reviewed it.
So you reviewed everything attendant to the medical examiner's file, is that correct?
Yes.
But nothing from the lab beyond that?
I don't believe I did.
Now, this first instance when you say you heard about it, how did you hear about it?
Well, I believe it was via a headline that I received in my email from the from Boston Globe headline. You know, it was some kind of there was some kind of interesting case, and I got it as an email, and I looked into it.
And when was that?
Well, that was that week in May. That just a few days before May 17th.
You subscribed to the Boston Globe online?
I did at that time. I have not renewed it.
How long had you been a subscriber to the Boston Globe?
I'm going to allow it.
Probably a year or 6 months to a year.
There was never any headlines or anything else that you saw about this prior to that week just before May 17th?
Not that I paid attention to.
I have nothing further.
Anything further, Mr. Jackson?
Nothing further.
All right, so since this is a voir dire, I get to ask questions, doctor?
Oh,
So
yes,
I just
okay.
have a couple of questions for you. I don't think I really heard you. So could you tell me again what your opinion is and to what degree you hold that opinion?
Yes. These injuries in the arm are, my opinion is that they are the result of animal bites or scratches.
And do you know what kind of animal?
Well, yes, most likely dog, large dog. And I'm very reasonable, very sure to, what's the word I want? Medical certainty, very
All right, so
high degree of medical certainty.
reasonable degree of medical certainty.
Yes, definitely.
Okay, and another question. So I received information that you also viewed all reports associated with Chloe, a dog's prior bite history. Did you review those?
No, I don't recall ever seeing anything like that.
That you also reviewed the UC Davis DNA testing results submission forms?
No, I don't recall seeing them.
Okay, any follow-up, any questions based on my questions?
Not for the Commonwealth, no.
No, Your Honor.
All right, you are all set, doctor. I don't know yet whether you'll be testifying.
Okay.
We'll try and let you know. Are you going to be around for a few days?
No.
No.
Okay, we'll let you know as soon as we can, okay?
Okay. Okay.
Thank
All right. Thank you.
Well, there you have it.
I think Bev was happy with that.
Bev is going to disqualify her because she's looking for a reason not to let this lady blow up the case. Anyone with a set of eyeballs can see that that did not come from a taillight. The crash reconstructive person did not make a good case that it came from the taillight, and John O'Keefe flew 30 feet after bumping his head on the curb. So that doesn't make any sense. The dog bite does make sense. Maybe it was something else, but the dog bite definitely makes sense. But Karen Reed and the defense flew her in so they can do a voir dire if this doctor can testify in the case. And I think Aunt Bev is leaning towards it's just too damning for the Commonwealth, her boss.
So I would like to hear argument on this witness before we hear the other witnesses. So
I'm surprised
Ms.
they're even out
Tianetti, I
that
asked
far
you the
on
other
the
day
jurors.
whether she reached out to you or you reached out to her, and you said there was an intermediary. But my concern was whether she came out of nowhere and reached out about this case, and that seems to sort of.
It wasn't Mr. Unetti, it was me.
Okay. All right. So the question I asked was answered pretty much by this witness, whether she saw something and decided she wanted to come forward. All right, it's the Commonwealth's motion. What are you asking me to do? Again, I found a violation of Rule 14. And there are two concerns here, the competency of the witness's testimony, how much she can testify to, whether she should testify at all.
Competency?
What is it you're asking me, Mr. Lally?
Your Honor, I'm asking that the witness
I
be
think it
excluded
was
from
this
testifying at the
upcoming
trial,
witness, not this
the
past lady.
violation of Rule 14. Specifically, I believe it's Rule 14A6.
If you don't mind me jumping in the
This
conversation,
is
they're talking about this.
a witness, as the court picked up on, that reached out, albeit through an intermediary, with reference to just sort of discovering or coming upon this case in several weeks into the trial. It is concerning given the fact that the witness represented that she had a subscription to the Globe Online, received word of this, and the first time that she had ever seen it or it had grabbed her attention was in that first week of May when, as the court is well aware, there's been widespread media coverage, particularly through the Boston Globe, for years at this point. The limitations of the testimony, it's also concerning because the disclosure from counsel indicated, again, as the court had noted, I didn't want to get into too much as far as for purposes of this voir dire, but there was additional material that was indicated in the disclosure that the witness had reviewed, including the UC Davis related to the canine DNA or the lack thereof, as well as, forgive me, the dog bite history of that specific dog, which also I would note for the court includes photographs of what a dog bite from that specific dog looks like. And that specifically apparently was not provided to this witness, who's then opining on, inferably at least, that that dog was the cause of these particular injuries. However, was not shown specifically anything to do with that bite history as far as by way of reports or photographs. So that juxtaposed or coupled with the immensely late disclosure. I mean, we're talking about at least the 6th week of trial by the time this witness is even mentioned, not on the defendant's witness list, not mentioned at any point in time during the pendency of the case, and then sort of pops up in the middle of May, and to the point that the limited amount of material or information that's provided by counsel as far as disclosure opinion doesn't come until today. So for all those reasons, Your Honor, the Commonwealth is requesting that her testimony in its entirety be excluded from this trial.
Jackson?
Your Honor, exclusion is the highest form of punishment. It's the highest form of sanction that the court has available to it. Just to put a fine point on it, it is a dire remedy. And I know the court has mentioned 2 or 3 times, I'm finding a violation of Rule 14. That sounds as if the court is suggesting or has inferred that we did something wrong. We didn't do anything wrong. As the court learned, I didn't reach out to her. She reached out and said, hey, look, I've got some experience with this.
I asked you that the other day, though, and I was told that you reached out to her through an intermediary. I wasn't told she reached out to you through an intermediary.
I don't know that there's a difference. I mean,
What I was trying to get at is this somebody who read about this case and said, you know, I want to be part of that. That's what I was trying to get at. I think it was pretty clear, Mr. Jackson. Go ahead, continue with your argument.
okay, I did not misrepresent anything to the court.
I didn't say that.
I take offense at the court's tone.
She was going to say you lied, and then she changed the words.
Exactly.
And it's not what I said the other day. I know a person in Los Angeles DA's office. I received a text message from that person saying there's someone who reached out to me who said I might be able to elucidate on this controversy concerning the dog bites. I then reached out to her. So when you asked me who reached out to whom, I reached out to her through an intermediary, my friend in the DA's office back in Los Angeles County.
So maybe it wasn't clear what I was looking for. I think it was clear. But go ahead, continue with your argument on this.
My point is, Rule 14 requires a sanction if, in fact, the attorney has done something wrong. In other words, it connotes the idea that we're doing something by actively hiding evidence or holding back evidence or not providing evidence that you know you're going to use at some point in an effort to take a tactical advantage. And the sanction for that is exclusion. I've never met this woman. First time I laid eyes on her was during the process after she flew out here to engage this voir dire process. She indicated I could potentially provide some information about this controversy concerning dog bites. I then sent her materials. I talked to her. I sent her materials. I found her to be incredibly credible. I found her to be experienced, and I found her to be knowledgeable in this very specific area, which is rare. There's not that many people who have published, doctors who have published in the area of dog bites specifically. So I thought it makes sense for me to reach out to her and talk to her, which is exactly what we did. And within a couple of days, literally, you could almost count it by the hours of me receiving her information, we then had a discussion amongst ourselves. Is this somebody that we want to then present on the defense side, on the defense case, and we turned the information over to Mr. Lyle. I understand that it was well into the trial, but that's not a fault of ours, and I don't think the sanction of exclusion is necessary or appropriate to punish Ms. Reed from having an experienced witness testify in rebuttal to ultimately what Dr. Scortibello and the Commonwealth is going to present in their case in chief. That's what she's going to do. She's going to present contrary evidence or an alternative theory of where those injuries came from to a person. Everybody on the Commonwealth side who can elucidate about this has said those injuries come from a tail light, including Mr. Paul yesterday. We have contrary evidence, and Ms. Reed should be entitled to present that evidence, even though it came late. It didn't come late by any fault of ours, and I don't believe that the Commonwealth has made out a prejudice that they can't overcome. It's late. Obviously, Mr. Lally is a skilled lawyer. There's nothing to say that he can't or hasn't been able to prepare for the cross-examination or for an examination in front of the jury. And I just don't think exclusion is appropriate.
All right, so the second part of this argument, and I'll start with the Commonwealth first. So in your motion to exclude, you also raise Daubert-type concerns. So, Mr. Lally, is there portions, if I permit her to testify, are there portions, focus specifically on the part of her opinion where she says, I guess the defense expects her to be able to say she will testify that these injuries are inconsistent with having been struck by a vehicle, road rash, or scratches from broken glass or taillight material. I think you have an uphill battle on that part, Mr. Jackson. The Commonwealth, what are you saying? If she testifies, what should she be able to testify to? And don't just say nothing. I want some input.
No. If the court were permitted to test the doctor to testify, Your Honor, what I would submit would be permissible testimony from a legal standpoint. I have some factual questions in regard to that, but from a legal standpoint, I think the court could permit her to testify as to the injuries that she observed, her work in history in that area, observing prior injuries related to animal attacks and whatever consistency she believes that they have with that. I do not think it would be proper to allow this witness to testify or opine anything about the inconsistency with regard to pedestrian injuries. I don't think any proper foundation has been laid for there, whether it be through experiential knowledge in relation to that or any sort of specialized training or knowledge or anything to do with that. Anything from a forensic pathology or anatomical pathology perspective, I think should also be out of bounds and excluded with regard to this witness. She's certainly a very experienced emergency room physician. So anything in relation to that, I think it's permissible. But as far as the experience when it comes to motor vehicle crashes or pedestrian crashes, of which the court is well aware, there are a litany of different types of interactions a pedestrian can have with a motor vehicle in a collision sequence. And simply saying, well, there was no injuries to the leg, so it couldn't have been a motor vehicle collision is just plain wrong, and not backed up by science or anything else that this witness can testify to from the very limited experience she has in that realm. So if the witness were able or permitted by the court to testify, I would submit that her testimony should be relegated to simply what, if any, opinions, her experience, obviously, and then what, if any, opinions she draws with regard to the causation of the injuries on the right arm, as it pertains to consistency there. But I venture to guess that it's likely that those are probably also going to be, in her opinion, consistent with many other causes beyond that, if she's being reasonable.
All right, Mr. Jackson.
I'll submit, Your Honor. I have no issue with, I just said I'll submit, I'm not submitting. I have no issue with limiting her testimony to the animal attack issue, the dog attack issue. I didn't, as the court noted, I didn't spend any time. I think I may have asked one question that's consistent with the motor vehicle incident. I have no problem if the court wants to limit her testimony to the dog bite aspect and not the motor vehicle aspect. I wasn't planning on going into that aspect anyway. I've got another pathologist who's going to do exactly that.
But you did go through it with her and it's on your disclosure.
It is, but I have no problem editing.
So why is it on the disclosure or what the Commonwealth turned over that she viewed all reports associated with Chloe's bite history in the UC Davis DNA testing? Why is that in there?
Because we set that in a Dropbox. We set everything in a Dropbox, and I assumed that she reviewed it. She must not have seen it or opened it or reviewed it. I didn't know. But that's what was sent to her. Everything that's in the disclosure is what was sent to her.
Right. If she's permitted to testify, you led her through quite a bit today. You won't be able to. I mean, she struggled with to what degree of certainty she held an opinion. She struggled to what she viewed. She didn't write a report. I have to consider all of these things too, as the gatekeeper as to whether she can actually assist the jury. So I'm not deciding this right here. Mr. Lally, if I do permit her to testify, I will give you time to absorb this testimony and to find an expert in rebuttal for this. How long might something like that take?
Not terribly long, Your Honor. As far as preparation, I can't give an exact time frame on that. As far as a rebuttal witness, I'd say a week at the most.
A week from today?
Yes.
Why don't you start looking at least? All right, well, I decide I won't know until Thursday.
Sure.
All right. All right, anything else on this witness?
Submitted, Your Honor.
All right, next witness, please.
This is crazy. She has the same amount of training as the Commonwealth expert that went to that state police 3 classes. She has that plus 80 times more, but she's not qualified to make an accident reconstruction.
Well, I want to know who did what. I
think
want to.
her
They say
biggest
we.
hang up
I want to
is
know who did
the
what.
timing. I think she can't get past that.
Is the court suggesting that I go through their entire testimony of exactly what they did, their testing, their opinions, conclusions, the bases of their opinions, conclusions?
However you want to do it, Mr. Jackson, we're here today on the Commonwealth's motion.
I realize that, but it's not the Commonwealth's motion to depose our experts. The Commonwealth's motion is they're not qualified as accident reconstructionists. I don't need to go, and I'm not inclined to give them a free bite at the apple to cross-examine these witnesses twice on the basis of their opinion. I will go through, I think, to the court's satisfaction. I don't think it's going to take long to figure out that they're extraordinarily qualified to render opinions, but I don't think it's incumbent upon me to walk through their entire testimony and give the Commonwealth a free bite at the apple like it's a deposition.
Whatever you want to do. I'm not telling you what to do. Whatever you want to do.
Dante.
You know, I have to be honest and say I was liking her up until today.
Who, the judge?
Yeah.
Well, I can kind of see some of the issues with the dog bite witness. It would be an issue if she's reaching out, trying to insert herself into the case. These experts make money, so.
But like he said, these people are very rare, and she probably knows that she's a rarity.
No, I don't disagree. I'm saying I don't disagree with the fact that they have a voir dire to
Yes. Thank you.
certify an expert witness. Actually, it's required to do that.
Yeah, you can talk about the dog bite, but not that there's no evidence a car
Whenever
hit
you're
her.
ready, Mr. Jackson.
Because with that, they don't have a case.
But here's what I'm confused on: is the jury
Daniel
is in
Wolf,
there. How can
last
the
name spelled
jury, even if she's not allowed to
W-O-L-F-E.
testify, how can the jury not unhear what they
I am the
just heard?
director of accident reconstruction at a company.
The jury's
known
not
as
in the
ARCA,
courtroom right now. This is
ARCA.
voir dire.
And tell us a little
Oh,
bit about
I thought the jury was okay.
what ARCA is and what its primary mission is.
So ARCA is a forensic consulting engineering company. We have a variety of disciplines that include biomechanics, failure analysis, human factors, premise liability, crashworthiness, and accident reconstruction.
You said that you were the current director of accident reconstruction, correct?
That is correct.
Is that a special
The director.
of ARCA specifically?
Yes, sir.
And what sort of contracts does ARCA routinely engage in?
Is he a
We
defense
typically
witness?
work for law firms, insurance carriers.
What about other clientele? For instance, maybe it's an insurance carrier or a law firm, but what about the ultimate client? The military, Department of Defense. Have you contracted
Did the
with
defense
other
call him?
entities or agencies, sporting
Yeah.
sporting
He's
agencies?
the FBI.
Certainly, yes. We've
accident.
done research
Oh.
for the military. We do player safety for the NHL. So yes, we are involved in a number of research projects as well.
And in terms of ARCA and its commissions and consultation, is it known both nationally and internationally? Is it recognized as a leader in the area of accident reconstruction?
Yes.
As the director of accident reconstruction, do you specialize in not only accident reconstruction, but human factors as well?
I'll be right
Yes,
back.
sir.
Can you give me a synopsis of the professional discipline of accident reconstruction? What is accident reconstruction?
Well, I think that's a very broad topic. I look at the cases that come across my desk. You know, I've been involved with pedestrian impacts, and that can be pedestrians hitting the side of vehicles, fronts, backs, getting run over by vehicles, being struck by a vehicle, then projected into another vehicle. I've dealt with your simple fender bender collisions. I've dealt with collisions that involve 60-car pileups on a highway. So again, accident reconstruction in terms of the scope for a case, it can really vary case to case depending on the facts and circumstances of that case.
And when you say dealt with, are you talking about literally going into, from an engineering and a scientific standpoint, trying to reconstruct what happened, what the causal effects were of that accident, and what the results were, the resultant damage or injuries were?
Absolutely.
What about human factors? What is that discipline?
Yeah, the state don't want this. That dog bite ain't
Well, to
nothing.
give
This
you
guy
an
here
example
eat
of
him
that,
up.
so I do a lot of nighttime visibility work where, for instance, let's say a pedestrian's coming out onto the roadway at night. Maybe it's not a lit roadway and you're relying on your vehicle headlights to illuminate that pedestrian. So it's determining when would a driver recognize that individual on the roadway based upon the headlights, if there is any artificial lighting, their clothing. And then we look at how do drivers respond based upon that scenario that they're presented with. So we know that response times are different depending on the hazard that's presented to them. So if it's a pedestrian coming to the roadway, it's a vehicle stopping in front of you. So that's the application of human factors.
And that might include everything from passenger vehicles, commercial vehicles, bicycle issues, motorcycle issues, things of that nature.
Yes, sir.
Okay. What education, training, and background qualifies you to perform the duties that you just described as director of accident reconstruction at ARCA?
In terms of my educational background, I received a Bachelor of Science in Engineering from James Madison University back in 2012, along with a minor in mathematics. Some of my coursework while at James Madison included courses in physics, statics, dynamics, kinematics, material science, and your typical engineering sciences. Subsequent to my undergraduate degree, I then went on to the University of Delaware to pursue my PhD in electrical and computer engineering with a concentration in electromagnetics and photonics.
Did your research area also include physics, in addition to electromagnetics?
Yes, sir.
Optics?
Yes, sir.
Photonics?
Yes, sir.
This is a guy that you wouldn't commonly find at any parties that we hold.
Accredited as
He doesn't hang out with people like
traffic
us.
accident reconstructionist?
Yes, sir.
But he doesn't seem like a big
By an
nerd, though.
organization known as ACTAR, which is
No,
the
actually, he
Accreditation
presents very well.
Commission
That's
for
why I
Traffic
say
Accident Reconstructionist.
he's going to be a problem for the state. And I don't really see them being able to keep him out. The state,
Yes, sir.
just like with the dog bite, the state's hopefully just trying to narrow the scope of what they can testify to. But I believe this is the FBI's
Yes, sir.
experts, right?
Are you trained in Bosch crash?
I think so. I don't know. I think so.
Yes, sir.
Otherwise known as
Their,
CDR
their
analysis.
timing is what their
Correct.
only complaint they're going to have on this, and I don't know if that's going to be enough to keep them out.
Are you certified by the Society of
Well, Aunt Bev doesn't seem too excited about
Yes,
none
I'm
of
a
these.
member of that organization.
What about being a member of Optical Society of America?
Yes, sir.
Illuminating Engineering Society?
Yes, sir.
And finally, the National
not sure.
Association of Professional Accident Reconstruction Specialists.
Yes, sir.
You're accredited by all of those organizations, is that right?
I'm a member of all of those. Yes, sir.
Have you authored peer-reviewed articles?
She's got issues, and Jackson brought it
I've
up,
offered a number of papers in the field of physics, and one of my most recent
excluding the
publications was
testimony is
that,
like the
dealing
death
with
penalty
Toyota
for
and Lexus vehicle
violations.
control history records.
There's a lot of things they can do in to sanction one side for not abiding by discovery, one way or the other. There's some appeal issues if she would exclude it totally.
Yes, sir.
That I think would be an issue for her.
In other courts to testify testify as an expert in the area of accident reconstruction.
Yes, sir.
Importantly,
In other words, whether she likes it or not, she's going to have to let some of this
No,
in
sir.
unless
before this morning,
she can show that the defense intentionally
No, sir.
hid the discovery of these experts in order to prevent the state from having a chance to
that have anything to do with the defense?
counter it.
No, sir.
That have anything
Yeah, I
to do
think
with
2
Congress?
points that's
sir.
important to see here is Bevac's way different when the jury's not there versus when they are there. I think that's definitely one
Correct.
The person to my left, the female. To my
Yeah,
left
it's
is
pretty
the
common though. They get pretty straight
Nope.
talk shop when the jury's not there. The jury's there. The judges do put on a bit of a
Yes.
show. But one is the
How many times have you been?
they do think about appeals. Judges that get overturned on appeals very often is not very
I
good for their
think it's
record.
around
They
20
care about
times to
that.
date.
In both federal and state court,
Just state court.
multiple states.
Yes, sir.
But this guy is like an atom bomb going off in Hiroshima, dude. This is blowing up the case for sure.
Whatever they are.
This guy gets there and says that his the accident couldn't happen like the state did. Their cases, and I think the state's case is already
It's
in
based on the
jeopardy.
evidence,
It's
that's
taking on
correct.
water and going down fast. This would be the death knell, in my opinion.
Correct.
Yeah, this is like flushing it down the toilet. This is completely
Your
over.
team were asked to undertake a review for purposes of accident reconstruction of the case that's now pending before the court. Is that right?
That's correct.
All right, what he's doing now,
Who at ARCA was assigned to the team who ultimately would undertake?
I'm
that
going to
analysis?
predict that this is what this.
So it was myself.
this guy's
Dr.
going to
Andrew
testify,
Rentschler,
but I
and
think they're going
Scott
to
Klein.
restrict the jury from knowing
Scott Klein has a Master
that
of Science, is that right?
they were hired
I
by
believe
under a
he's
federal
got
investigation
a
and then
Bachelor of
offered
Science in
up
Mechanical Engineering,
the
yes.
findings after
Correct.
the fact.
And Dr. Rentschler is a PhD.
Because that would make it to the jury, it makes it look like this is
biomechanical
a
engineering.
third uninterested party. No reason to lie. They're coming here because they have the facts and they're laying the facts on the table for the sake of justice.
Yes, sir.
I think she will restrict that.
Yes.
That the jury's going to have to jury's going to be led to believe or left with the impression that this is a paid expert witness by the defense,
I'd like to
making them essentially a hired gun.
read through a number of materials that you reviewed.
Yeah, the second point I was going to make about this guy is the state would call a quality person like this that is no doubt an expert, but nobody with those credentials are going to say the accident happened like that trooper said yesterday.
I just want you to
Yeah, I
tell
think
me
the only
if
person that
you
felt
tell me if you recognize that.
that trooper's testimony was strong is maybe
sir.
the trooper's
What is
mother.
that? What are those 2 pages?
These are the first 2 pages from the report.
In fact, the
that
jury's
ARCA
probably at home
issued
today
in
still
regards to
giggling
this
about
matter.
this. Like,
Did you see a list of
this
14
guy said
items?
what? He
on
looked
those
like a
2
clown.
pages?
Yes, sir.
Is that an accurate reflection of the items that you were provided by this other agency to review in terms of coming to your opinions and conclusions?
And I will say this:
concerning this case?
Yes, sir.
May I approach, Your Honor?
there's
Yes.
levels of accident investigator classes you get in law enforcement. One is the basic level, and then intermediate, and then advanced. For them to bring in somebody that's only had
Correct.
very basic level accident investigation, that's a guy that investigates a red light collision. And
Correct.
his testimony would, or his report would hold some weight in like insurance evaluations. But death or injury, you need somebody
Correct.
that's got more senior experience and more advanced training.
Correct.
Photographs of the 2021 Lexus LX 570.
Correct.
But once again, it goes back to,
Recovered evidence.
I just don't know if these guys are
Correct.
so incompetent or if they're covering it up. It's hard to see, but something's up.
Correct.
Report of autopsy.
Did you see when Lally was cross-examining the lady? He's like,
Yes.
you went through those couple classes in the state police department? She's like, yeah.
Yes.
And then he goes, and that's all the training you've had? You haven't had all this other, like, that's the same training that your expert had yesterday.
Yes.
Expert auto stats
Yeah, but
data sheet.
and remember too, and they shot that down with the Voir on,
Yes.
was it Friday? They shut it down early for that witness. That witness was there as a witness. He had material knowledge on the investigation, therefore he can sit in the seat. He's qualified witness. But
Correct.
they nixed him as an air quotes expert witness. He was there to testify because the state used him as essentially an investigator. He was on the case. He investigated the accident. He was not an expert. He barely had enough training.
In no small part.
Well,
two
I won't even go into his training.
If I can ask them, in terms
But
of
they
pillars.
They started with him trying to be an expert in that Voir on
John O'Keefe,
or
correct?
Wardar,
I
as
would
they
say that's a
say,
fair characterization. Yes.
Wardar,
And I may be butchering
on
this again
Friday,
because I'm not
they
very
nixed him, and the
scientific,
decision
but
that
were you more
he was
responsible
because they
for
stopped
the
him.
vehicle damage or
They
the
stopped him
injury?
with an
The
objection
vehicle damage.
when he started to
Who
try
on
to
your team
determine
was
whether the tail
responsible
light
for
damage could have
the
occurred
injury
when
damage?
That
they
would
had
be
the
Dr.
incidental
Andrew
contact
Rentschler.
when she's backing out of the garage.
Obviously, Dr. Wolf,
Defense
you're
rightfully
coming to
so
the
said, "Whoa,
finish.
whoa, whoa! This guy does not have the. He's not an expert. He just investigated, and he did not investigate that. He's just seen a videotape of it."
Correct.
And the judge listened to that, said she'd look at it over the weekend and make a decision, and then come back Monday. That never came back again. So the judge went to the defense's side. This guy's not an expert. So from that point forward, he's just a guy investigating or testifying on
Correct. We
what he
work
conducted
together.
Is that I was just going to say,
and what
is
he
that how
did
you
and what
two
reports he
and,
wrote
Mr.
in
Klein
relation to this
together
investigation
comes to
as
the
a
opinions
state
and
police
conclusions that were
officer.
cited
But
in
that's
your
as far
multiple
he's no expert
Yes, sir.
whatsoever.
Thank you.
The
That's all.
difference in this guy and the dog bite guy is that they are not material witnesses to the offense. They've studied it. They've got to be deemed by the court an expert. Therefore, the jury can weigh in their opinions because their opinion as an expert, but not as a material witness. And that's why we're having these
Morning.
voir dires now, because these guys did not have actual they're not material witnesses to the offense.
Now you went.
It was just interesting yesterday when Jackson referred to him as based on your expert opinion.
Your agency was provided with.
Yeah, no, he was kicking him in the teeth as he
That is
rightfully
correct.
should.
Did you specifically review all 14 of those things, or was that done as sort of a team?
Yes, I looked through all of the documents.
So you personally looked at all 14 of those items that are listed within the report,
Yes, sir.
and you indicate that it was your opinions or what you did in this case. That was you were asked to answer specific questions, correct?
Yes.
It wasn't like you were just tasked with, hey, here's some facts, go do or take a look at a crash reconstruction or read a crash reconstruction. You were asked very specific questions and you tried to answer them the best you could, correct?
I don't know that there were specific questions. I think ultimately it was an open-ended question.
But related to you testified as to two specific areas that your firm or your agency looked at, right?
Those are the disciplines that the report covers, yes.
Well, you testified about some other areas of expertise as far as human factors, visibility, luminescence, things like that. You didn't do any of those things here, correct?
Wasn't part of my scope in this case.
And the scope in your case, you indicate that it was based on the evidence, correct?
That is correct.
Now, to be fair, that's based on the evidence that you were provided, correct?
Correct.
So what
No decision on Dr. Russell, Lisa.
So as a part of the engagement with the entity that ultimately retained us in this, due to the confidentiality of it, only those who had access to the material to the file were allowed to review it and discuss it. And essentially, Scott Klein served as kind of another reconstruction expert to essentially bounce ideas off of and help with the review.
So for lack of a better term, sort of provided, let's say, sort of technical review of your work and Dr. Rentschler's work, is that correct?
I would say assist us with the analysis, yes.
Now, obviously, your firm or your agency issued a report in relation to what you did, correct?
That's correct.
And you obviously had a time to review that report as far as what's contained in there factually, as well as conclusions and opinions, things of that nature.
Yes.
So is it your testimony that anything that has to do with anything factually, conclusions, opinions, or otherwise, in relation to the motor vehicle damage, those are your opinions, those are your conclusions, correct?
I would say that's fair, yes.
And again, based on the evidence that you were provided, correct?
Correct.
And so the facts or evidence or conclusions or opinions related to injuries to Mr. O'Keefe, that was Dr. or Mr. Rentschler's area, is that fair to say?
Dr. Rentschler, yes.
And again, that was based on the evidence or whatever he was providing, correct?
Correct.
Which would be the same materials that you had testified that you had reviewed, correct?
Correct.
I have nothing.
Anything further, Mr. Jackson? All right, so Doctor, I just have one question for you. What specifically were you asked to do?
I'm sorry, Your Honor, I didn't hear the court.
What specifically were you asked to do?
So the agency that retained us gave us a selected quantity of file material related to this case, and essentially left it as an open and Keith and the Lexus.
Okay, you said selected quantity of information. Who selected that information?
As far as I'm concerned, it would be the Department of Justice and the FBI.
All right, and they just gave you what they wanted to give you, as far as you know?
We had no say in what material was handed over to us.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much. Any questions based on my questions?
No, Your Honor.
The Department of Justice and the
Briefly.
FBI. Ruh-roh.
And I apologize for this. I'm just unaware. Is it Mr. Wolf or Dr. Wolf?
Dr. Wolf is fine.
I wished you didn't use the word FBI or the
Whether or
acronym.
not the evidence, the limited scope that you were provided was consistent with a pedestrian collision. Were you asked sort of in general terms as far as any type of pedestrian collision, or were you asked specifically as far as biomechanically could say the injury to the back of Mr. O'Keefe's head have been caused by contact with the vehicle? How open-ended was this question?
Again, I think it relates to, is the vehicle damage consistent with the pedestrian impact, and are the injuries consistent with the pedestrian impact?
And again, the whole panoply of injuries, is that correct?
I'm sorry, what was your question?
Let me rephrase. So did anybody specifically ask you to determine whether or not the injuries to the back of Mr. O'Keefe's head could have been caused by a motor vehicle?
I don't know that they asked us specifically. Again, they basically asked us to perform an accident reconstruction and biomechanical analysis and basically tell them our findings, and these are our findings.
And in the materials that you reviewed, did you see anything in there of any sort of statement, suggestion, intimation, anything at all that suggested that the injuries or the fracture to the back of Mr. O'Keefe's head was caused by a motor vehicle?
In terms of direct contact?
This is what the defense
No, I
didn't
don't
want him
think
to
so.
do. He's cross-examining him.
Nothing.
Anything?
Nothing.
All right, Dr. Wolf, you are all set, sir.
Thank you.
Let's see what she says about this.
She doesn't want this guy testifying either. The FBI is all up in her case. But this guy, clearly, he was perfect.
Yeah, it's not his first time on the witness stand, I promise you.
Very confident. I think it'd be tough for the jury to say, oh, I don't believe this guy. He's not credible.
Now, and I tell you, another way to look at it is how they react when the opposing side, under cross-examination, his demeanor didn't change. He was the same with both. That comes across more than I think people realize with a jury.
That he didn't get hostile.
Right. That he's not defensive towards one side or the other, because it makes it look like he's not an impartial witness, like the police do on this. The police get up there when the prosecution's asking, he's like, "Oh, well, yes, and I'm this and I'm that." And then when they get under cross-examination, they block up and can't understand any simple words, and have to ask them the question 3 different ways before you get an answer.
All right, whenever you're ready, Mr. Jackson.
Thank you, Your Honor. Sir, could you please state your name and spell your last name for the record?
Certainly. Dr. Andrew John Rentschler, Rentschler.
Doctors, what you need to remember.
I am a biomechanical engineer and accident reconstructionist.
In what area of the country do you live in?
I live in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania.
What is your title currently at your company?
I am a vice president and director of biomechanics for the Midwest Division.
And what is the name of that company?
It's called ARCA LLC.
And what is the main mission of ARCA? What does ARCA do?
So ARCA is a engineering consulting company, and we have several different types of engineers, biomechanical engineers such as myself, accident reconstructionists, mechanical engineers. We look at crash worthiness, safety of vehicles, and other types of events So we really do all types of work. We do litigation type work, as well as research and development for government and private entities as well.
Let me have just a moment, Your Honor.
Yes.
So far, so good on doctor.
I expect everybody from this ARCA is going to be top notch.
Can you give me a brief synopsis of the professional discipline of injury causation biomechanics? What is that?
So injury causation biomechanics is really applying traditional engineering principles to the human body. So as a biomechanical engineer, I look at the response of the body to accelerations and forces and determine how an injury occurs. You know, an injury to the human body is just an engineering problem. For instance, a mechanical engineer might look at a piece of steel and you know the size of the steel and the shape of it. And if you apply a force in a certain direction, that steel will bend and eventually break. Well, we do the same thing, but we look at the human body. How much force do you have to apply, and how does that force have to be applied in what direction or manner to get a specific injury, whether it's a skull fracture, an intervertebral disc injury, a concussion. So we look at the response of the human body to different forces and accelerations in different types of settings. And ultimately, our hope is to help mitigate or prevent injuries, whether it's in a motor vehicle accident, sports setting, industrial setting, auto pedestrian impact, try and make products and environments safer for individuals.
And that's different from what medical doctors do, correct?
It is, yes, sir.
Little boy walks into an ER with a broken arm. The medical doctor wants to reset the arm and fix the arm, correct?
That's right, yes.
What does a biomechanical engineer want to learn about the broken arm?
We want to learn how that break or that fracture occurs. I always say that we kind of approach injuries from two different directions. You have an injury occur. After it occurs, moving forward, that's when the medical doctors get involved. They diagnose the injury, determine the best way to treat it, what's the prognosis. As a biomechanical engineer, I kind of take the reverse direction. We look at, here's the injury, here's what's diagnosed. Well, how did that injury occur? You know, how much force do you have to apply to cause that fracture? How did the bone have to be loaded? How did it bend to actually cause a specific type of fracture? So we really kind of approach the injury from two different directions.
Understood. And given that scientific approach, oftentimes you can come to conclusions and opinions, scientific conclusions and opinions about the causation of an injury, correct?
Absolutely. Yeah. And I mean, ultimately, that's what biomechanical engineering is how does an injury occur? Why did it occur? And what type of setting did the injury actually occur? What type of loading and what type of kinematics do you need to have this injury actually occur?
Can you tell the court a brief synopsis on the discipline of human factors? What part does that play in what you do for a living?
Well, human factors is a large part of it as well. I mean, from a biomechanical standpoint, we look at the body, we have to know anatomy, we have to know the makeup of the body. And then human factors plays a part of it as well, as how individuals respond or what their response is to different types of environments or reactions. It really all plays into looking at a specific event. How did someone react? How did their body move? How was the body loaded? There's all different types of factors that you have to apply. The human factors, kinematics, kinetics, biomechanical, musculoskeletal interactions. It's all these different factors that are really involved in performing an analysis to ultimately look at injury causation.
Doctor, as the director of biomechanics and human factors at ARCA, what education, training, and background qualifies you to perform those duties?
Well, I got my Bachelor's of Science in Mechanical Engineering. With
I
a
expected
minor
him to
in biomedical
giggle a little
engineering
bit
from
before he
Carnegie
answered that,
Mellon
like,
University in 1995.
Let me tell you.
I then went on to get my master's in bioengineering and biomechanics from the University of Pittsburgh in 2002. And then I got my PhD or my doctorate in bioengineering and biomechanics from the University of Pittsburgh in 2004.
Can you give us
No further questions.
Up to and before ARCA?
Sure. So I got my my PhD in 2004, and then since then I've worked in the consulting field for biomechanics. I've worked for a company out in Davis, California for a while called Biomechanical Engineering Accident Reconstruction. I then joined another engineering company in Jacksonville, Florida for about 3 years called Chesapeake Engineering and Design. And I have now been with ARCA for approximately 16 and a half years.
And in those positions and in your position currently as a director at ARCA, do you specialize in research and analysis attendant to evaluating and studying the relationships between crash injuries, crash forces, human kinematics, and human tolerances?
I do. I mean, that's really what I do on a daily basis, whether it be in litigation type cases or the research and development we do for different companies or entities, or even internal research that we perform at ARCA.
Doctor, what professional associations and accreditations do you have?
I'm a member of the American Society for Mechanical Engineers, as well as the Society for Automotive Engineering. With respect to biomechanical engineering, there's no actual professional licensure for biomechanical engineering. So a PhD or a doctorate's the highest degree you can have in that field.
Are you also a reviewer for archives of physical medicine and rehabilitation and biomechanical engineering online?
I am, yes. Well, usually if you publish articles in a journal, usually that journal comes back to you and asks you to be a reviewer. So I certainly do that type of work as well.
I'd like to ask you a couple of questions about your ongoing education, your professional education after your PhD.
I'm gonna have to disagree with my man Vet. I thought Grandma, she wasn't. She doesn't pop as a witness like these guys do.
I've taken classes through the NTSB
Grandma
and
might be a struggle.
the IPTM, Police Technology Management Training Center. There's several different entities I've taken biomechanical and accident reconstruction courses through.
So the alphabet soup, if you will, of biomechanical engineering and human factors.
Right, yes.
And you continue that today?
I do, yes, sir.
Any specific training in human kinematics?
Yes, I do have training in human kinematics.
Just out of curiosity, how do you define what is kinematics?
So kinematics is the motion of the human body and looking at how the body moves.
So this is the last
and
person.
it's irrelevant or irrespective of the forces that cause that motion. So we're really looking at for instance, how one body part moves with respect to the next. We can see how the body moves as a result of a specific type of event.
Oh, okay.
You mentioned
This guy was hired by the FBI.
Oh, okay.
As one of the best people in the country for accident reconstruction and
so again, that's a subset of
mechanics
biomechanics,
of how a body
looking at
is
the response and the strength of different parts of tissue of the human body. On a very basic level, to get an injury or have an injury occur, you need really two factors. You need enough force to cause injury to the tissue, and you need that force applied in the right manner. So if I wanted to fracture my elbow, I certainly couldn't take a hit on my shoulder and expect my elbow to fracture. Its force is exerted in the wrong location. And likewise, if I just lean my elbow on the counter here, that's not enough force. So you need the force and you need the application of that force in the correct manner to produce what we call an injury mechanism.
And have you ever participated in any studies or research in this area? In addition to your dissertation, getting your PhD, what about additional studies and research in this general area?
I have, yes, sir.
Can you describe that for us briefly?
Certainly. Well, just at ARCA, I've worked with the United States military. We worked on the design of the MRAC vehicles, the mine-resistant ambush-protected vehicles over in Iraq and Afghanistan.
That's a troop carrier, correct?
That's correct, yes. And the issue there is they go over the IED, the improvised explosive device, and it blows the vehicle up off the ground. So you're getting very large forces and accelerations through the vehicle, through the seat, into the soldier's spines. So we're seeing very traumatic and severe spinal and head injuries. So at ARCA, we work on what we call an energy absorbing seat design. So when the vehicle gets blown off the ground, that seat is designed to absorb the force and the energy to protect the soldier's spine and their head.
Did you take part in the design of that seat?
I did, yes, sir.
Interestingly enough, I have a friend that did that.
Yes, it has been.
And our troops utilizing that new seat design, that safety seat design in that troop carrier to this day?
As far as I know, it's from what they'll tell us, yes, sir.
Understood. Are you also published in this field, Doctor?
I am, yes.
Can you give us a couple of examples of current studies that you're involved in or publications that you've done in the recent past concerning bioengineering and the impact or the association that it has with human factors?
Sure. I mean, and another project I'm working on is we work with the NHL actually at ARCA. We have an ongoing, we have an ongoing relationship with the Department of Player Safety. For instance, we helped redesign part of the rink. In every arena, they had at the end of the player area, there was basically a 90-degree stanchion where the glass met. And so players were kind of getting checked down in the boards and then hitting up against the glass. And actually, somewhat ironically, it was Chara hitting Pacioretty into the glass, the Boston-Montreal game, and caused a cervical fracture and concussion. And the NHL came to us to see if we could have a redesign of the rink to make it a little safer. So we took crash test dummies, the anthropomorphic test device, which you've probably seen on TV, the automotive manufacturers use them all the time, and threw them into different configurations of glass. And now in every arena in the NHL, it is basically a curved piece of spring-loaded Lexan or plexiglass, where the players now, they hit into it, it absorbs the impact, and they glance off of the glass.
Is that a design that you?
I think he just said they
It
used
is,
crash
yes.
So both
dummies.
from the
Interesting.
United States military as well as professional sporting leagues, they've come to you to help save lives, lower risk.
That's right, mitigate and prevent injuries, yes, sir.
What about crash and sled testing?
Yeah, I've performed a number of crash and sled tests. When you look at, any vehicle that's driven in the United States, it has to pass federal motor vehicle safety standards. There's federal regulations that they have to pass. And, part of that involves running the vehicle into a wall at 35 miles an hour, hitting it from behind, rollover type impacts. And they have these crash test dummies in those vehicles. So we perform a lot of testing for different cases and situations where we put that dummy in the vehicle and we evaluate the safety system, whether it's the lap and shoulder belt, or if it's the airbag or the seatbelt pretensioner, determine how to make the car safer. And part of that is looking at the force that's exerted on that dummy, because there's tolerance values. We know how much force it takes to cause specific injuries. So we want to make sure in certain instances, at certain speeds or impacts, that if someone's in an accident, the force acting on, say, their head or their neck or their chest is going to be below these established tolerance values.
Speaking of,
Yeah, you don't need grandma to tell you about the accident. We got witnesses for that.
Yeah, no, that was Voir right there. He told the truth.
Yes, I've been involved in a number of studies where we're looking at auto pedestrian type impacts. Again, a lot of times we'll utilize the crash test dummy where we'll set it up and we'll actually have it struck by different vehicles or different objects to look at the response of the body. It's very important if you're talking about an auto ped type impact. You have to know the configuration of the pedestrian, the vehicle, where they hit on the vehicle.
Guy's got jargon.
Whether
Auto
it's a projection type impact, a wrap, a fender vault. It really all depends
He's seen
on
a
how the
vehicle
person's
striker, too.
positioned and the amount of force and speed involved in that type of an impact.
and staying with that for a second, that basic subject matter, have you also engaged in studies related to slips and falls where somebody might fall from a standing position and injure themselves either to their head, shoulders, whatever, and those kinds of injury impacts?
I have, yes. And then one of the issues we look at it there is a lot of people fall, especially elderly people. So we want to look at what types of forces are being produced. You look at hip fractures, if you slip and fall backwards, head fractures. So we're trying to determine how to prevent those falls from happening and also create devices or products that can help actually prevent injuries if someone does take a fall.
Doctor, have you been retained as an expert in the area of biomechanical engineering and human factors in the past?
I have, yes, sir.
May I approach, Your Honor?
Yes.
Can you take a look at that document and tell me if you recognize it?
This is a list of my deposition and trial testimony.
Your Honor, I provided that to the court this morning.
Yes, I appreciate it. I had a chance to look at it.
Okay. That's about I don't want to go through everything. That's about a 14-page document. Is that correct?
That's correct, yes, sir.
Let me just ask it this way. How many times do you think you've been qualified as an expert in the field or testified as an expert in the field of biomechanics, biomechanical engineering, and human factors?
I've testified probably over 150 times in numerous state, federal, civil, and criminal courts throughout the country.
Your Honor, move to, I'm sorry, may I approach?
Yes.
For the purposes of voir dire, Your Honor, I would ask that this document be marked.
Sure.
I like when Jackson said earlier with grandma, I reject to the court's tone about me.
As an expert in biomechanical engineering.
Yeah, he took
I
offense
have,
to
yes.
being called a liar. I don't blame him.
Well, actually, I've testified twice. The end of May, I think May 31st, I testified in McKean County, Pennsylvania. For the prosecution, it was a case where the defendant was accused of beating his girlfriend to death and basically said that she fell down the steps. So my testimony involved determining how her injuries occurred and that they were entirely inconsistent with what would have happened during a stair fall.
What about another case?
And then about a week after that, around June 6th or 7th, I testified in Cambria County, Pennsylvania, again for the prosecution for another homicide case where the defendant was accused of essentially beating his wife to death, and then said that she actually fell backwards and struck her head, caused a skull fracture on the side of the sink. So my testimony, again, pertained to looking at the injury mechanisms and determining that
Bet this
story
guy
of
makes
her
300
falling
grand a
back
year
and
just
striking her head
testifying.
on the sink, it's inconsistent with the injuries and the type of force that would have been exerted in that case.
In both of those murder cases, you were hired or retained by the prosecution in the case, not by the defense, correct?
That's correct, yes,
You
sir.
gave your opinions in furtherance of the prosecution's case in chief, not the defense case in chief, correct?
That's correct, yes.
With regard to this case, you were asked to look at several items. We've already gone over those in the other testimony, so I won't belabor that. You were asked to look at several items, correct?
I was, yes.
And ultimately, based on that series of information, that universe of information that you were provided, see if you could come to an opinion and conclusion concerning the incident before the court now, correct?
That's right. See if I could determine what happened, how the injuries occurred, and the events leading up to and during that process.
Without going into your conclusions and opinions, were you able to come to conclusions and opinions to a reasonable degree of scientific certainty?
I was, yes, sir.
You were not hired by the defense, by me, or anybody on the defense side in this case, correct?
That's correct. I was not.
You were not consulted with or hired by the Commonwealth either.
That's correct. I was not.
It was a completely independent agency, is that right?
That is correct. Yes, sir.
Before this morning, have you and I ever met?
No, sir.
And you and I have never talked about the substance of your opinion and conclusion, correct?
We have not. That's correct.
You did reduce those opinions and conclusions in conjunction with your team to a report, is that right?
I did. Yes, sir.
And your understanding is that report was made available both to the defense and the Commonwealth in this case, is that right?
Yes, sir. That's correct.
I have nothing further.
Okay, Mr. Lally.
Thank you, Your Honor.
This has got to be interesting. Isn't it true that what can you say if anything?
Good guess.
Just a few questions for you, sir. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, sir.
Now, with relation to your work in this instance, in this case, were there any limitations as far as confidentiality or anything that were put on you or any of your team?
What do you mean by confidentiality?
As far as who, what, where, and how you could discuss what you did?
Well, yeah, I mean, certainly we just discussed with who we were retained by in this case. I don't believe I discussed the case with anybody else except for my cohorts who were also involved in the case.
And so my question, sir, more is geared towards, at some point you were made aware that your report and your findings were made available to both the prosecution and the defense in this case, correct?
I was made aware of that, yes, sir.
And when you were made aware of that, was there any limitations on given to you as far as who you could discuss your report, your findings, or anything with?
Yeah, basically given the direction or the request that I don't actually discuss the substance of my opinions or my report with anybody aside from who we were originally retained to work for.
Now,
The FBI.
Yes.
He's trying to say the FBI says that you're not supposed to be
I am gonna
testifying
show you
here,
the
right?
First couple pages of your report, specifically.
Yeah, I think
right
he's
down
going
the
that
bottom.
way.
There's a list of items 1 through 14. I asked you to do those.
That's the only thing the state's got. You're not going to say this guy's not an expert. So they may try to
Now,
disqualify
is that
or
the
limit his
totality of information,
testimony.
that you and your firm were provided with in reference to what you did in this case.
I believe it was, yes, sir.
So nothing beyond that list of 14 things did you have occasion to look at, review, or have any opportunity to see at any time?
Well, aside from we did do testing in this case, so we did do other
Aside
work.
from your independent testing, I'm asking as far as material provided by whoever employed you, that is a sum and total of what you received, correct?
I believe that would be correct, yes, sir.
Treat him as
Did
hostile.
you
Yell at him.
personally review each of those 14 items? Because, and I don't fault you or your company for this, but within the report, there's a lot of wheat. So what I'm asking is, did you personally review each of those 14 items that are listed in that report?
I did personally review every bit and every page of information that was provided in this case, yes, sir.
And to be clear, just to sort of close the loop on this, when it comes to those 14 items, were you allowed to ask for any additional items, or was it just you were limited to this is what you have, go form an opinion?
There may have been discussion about if there's other information available, but I believe ultimately that we rendered our opinions obviously just on this specific information that was provided to us.
So you didn't talk to Michael Proctor and get the real story.
When was that issued?
February 12th of 2024.
So that date on the top of the report of February 12th, 2024, that's when you sent the report to the people that contracted you to do the analysis in the first place.
That's correct. Yes, sir.
May I approach you?
Yes.
Thank you.
Sure.
Now, am I correct? And what I'm trying to ascertain here, Doctor, is just sort of the different roles that you and the other members of your team performed in reference to this. Am I correct in that your primary role in this pertained to the sort of biomechanical engineering analysis of injuries sustained by Mr. O'Keefe?
That would be correct. Yes, sir.
And not to put too fine a point on it, but Dr. Wolf would have been more responsible for issues related to the vehicle itself.
Generally speaking, yes, that would be correct.
Obviously, there's some interaction between damage to the vehicle and injuries to Mr. O'Keefe, but as far as your primary sort of any opinions contained within this report pertaining to injuries to Mr. O'Keefe, those would be your opinions, correct?
Yes, any opinions or information with respect to the injuries would be my purview and my opinions in this matter. Yes, sir.
And concomitantly, so any opinions related to damage to the motor vehicle, those would be opinions of Dr. Wolf, is that right?
Well, to some extent. I mean, certainly I would have opinions as well based on the interaction or alleged interaction between the body and, for instance, the vehicle in this case, and what damage to both the body as well as the vehicle you would expect. So I think there's basically some overlap between those issues. I wouldn't say that it's a complete separation.
And so, and again, Doctor, what your opinions or ultimate conclusions are, whether they be yours or Dr. Wolf's or a combination of the two, it's all limited based on the information and the evidence that you received, correct?
It certainly is based on the information that we reviewed and listed in our report. Yes, sir.
Now, as far as sort of a mandate or from the agency that hired you, were you asked to answer a specific question, or were you asked to just do an analysis based on what we sent you, or how was that put to you as far as what you were doing?
There was a specific request that we were asked to perform and to evaluate in this case.
And specifically what I'm asking, sir, is there's an analysis in there of whether or not the injuries to the back of Mr. O'Keefe's head could have been caused from contact with the vehicle, correct?
That is part of my analysis and opinions, yes, sir.
And were you specifically asked to address or answer that question by the agency that hired you?
That was one of the questions I was specifically asked, yes, sir.
I have nothing further.
Anything further, Mr. Jackson?
Thank you.
All right, so Doctor, I have a couple of questions for you, sir. So regarding this specific request, what were you tasked to do specifically?
So specifically overall, I was tasked from the biomechanical standpoint to determine or see if it's possible to determine how the injuries in this case occurred. And part of that was determine whether the injuries, the head injury and the arm injuries resulted from contact with the Lexus in this case.
Okay. And regarding all of your prior testimony, a good deal of it seems to be in depositions. Any of those in Massachusetts?
There's a couple, I believe. I've testified at trial in Massachusetts,
Okay.
Middlesex Superior Court.
Do you know where that might be? I do want to look at that.
I can find it for you, maybe a couple of months ago.
Was it in a criminal case or a civil case?
Oh, it was in civil case. I
Okay.
think, let's see here. I think, yeah. So let's see. There was one November 14th, 15th, 2023, Middlesex Superior Court. That was probably the most recent one.
Hey, what number is that on there if I want to go
that
back and
will-
look at it?
That is number 310.
Thank you. Is there another Massachusetts case?
Oh, I'm sure there are because I know there's some from earlier in my career.
Yeah, and I've testified so many times it's impossible for me to recall it. I'll have to go to my Excel sheet.
Here.
I think that was the 310th time I testified. Let me look back a little bit.
It'd be easier for me to tell you my wins and losses. I won them all. I lost none.
It would be easier to point out the states I didn't testify in.
Connecticut.
And that would be the territory of Guam.
Ellsworth, Louisiana. Oh, there's 68. I'm gonna butcher it. Worcester.
Is that a civil or criminal case, doctor?
That is a civil case as well.
Okay. What year was that?
Oh, that one was 2012.
Okay. Any others that you think of or you see?
There may have been a couple others. I don't recall off the top.
All right, I'll go through it more closely. I
Sure.
appreciate you saving me.
He's not paid
All right, any
to
questions based on my
go
questions?
to criminal trials.
No, thank you, Your Honor.
No. All right, you are all set, sir. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Well, this is not good for the Commonwealth whatsoever. Both of these two doctors, actually all three doctors, proved that Karen Reed did not hit John O'Keefe with her car, which only leaves the conclusion something else besides that happened.
All right, so
Definitely not good for the
Mr.
state.
Lally, I will hear you on your motion. Now, we didn't get into the ultimate opinions and the basis for that opinion, but I'll hear you on your motion.
Your Honor, what essentially what Commonwealth was seeking and had been seeking was just in reference to that, as far as who did what and who was responsible for what and what were the items reviewed, and is that the totality of it? There's a date on the report. I don't know if that was a date as far as when it was filed, when it was opinion was rendered, when that was provided, what was provided to them in the course of their analysis. So I think very simply what the Commonwealth had been seeking for the most part was covered today.
Okay. All right, I have some questions as to the scope of the testimony of the witnesses.
They're not allowed to say
So,
that.
Mr.
hard
Jackson,
to
you
hit 'em.
intend to have them testify consistently with the report, everything covered in the report?
Correct.
And the conclusions, all four conclusions in the report?
Correct.
All right, Mr. Lally, what's your take on this?
I would rather they didn't, Your Honor.
I do have an issue with number 4. I don't think they're qualified to testify to. I don't think either of them is qualified to testify to that. That's more of an area of forensic pathology.
What do you say to that, Mr. Jackson?
Number 4 is, their opinion is, there is currently insufficient evidence to determine the cause of Mr. O'Keefe's skull or brain injuries or the circumstances surrounding the event. That is well within the scope of their expertise. Obviously, I don't think I have to beat this dead horse. They are highly, highly qualified to review all 4 opinions. And if the evidence in their opinion, their expert opinion, to a reasonable degree of scientific certainty, which is what's evidenced here by the report, is that there is insufficient evidence to determine the cause of Mr. O'Keefe's injuries, then that is an opinion that they are well within it's well within the scope.
That's literally what they do, is what caused the injury.
That's their conclusion.
Yeah, to the back of his head in the car. I mean,
a doctorate and PhD level.
Who's more qualified than these two guys?
Has differed in that opinion, so be it.
And I would have kept it out. Remember, I would have kept out any medical part had there been an objection. And when you objected, I sustained the objection.
No, I think we're talking about two different things, apples and oranges. I didn't, that's not, Trooper Paul's opinion is that his injury or his injuries, or I think he said variously that it was blunt force, could have come from the curb, or it was blunt force because the road is blunt. That was his opinion, and he was sticking to it. This is contrary to that. Both of these individuals have come to the conclusion and opinion that the evidence is insufficient to support that determination, and it's well within their purview to testify to that.
If I may, I don't think that's their actual opinion. I initially didn't think of it in these terms as it's phrased on the cover page of the report. If you look at the actual opinion
I
and
was looking at
findings,
the last page. Are they the same on the front and the back?
I think the front is a little more definitive and concerning. The
Lally,
back,
sit your
I think,
bitch
more
ass
is
down.
it's
Come on.
consistent with a whole multitude of different things. So the fact that I don't really think that's an opinion at all, to be honest with you.
All right, I'll take a look at this more closely, give you a decision Thursday. All right, I did not expect it to go this quickly. We could have had the jury here, but I'm sure you all could use the afternoon to prepare. All right, Mr. Lally, let me know Thursday if you need, are you ready to go forward at least with your case on Thursday?
Oh, yeah, sure.
Let me know Thursday if you need additional time. If I let these witnesses, if I let Dr. Russell testify, how that impacts our schedule. Okay?
Absolutely, Your Honor.
All right, but I don't want that to be a concern of yours, how it impacts the schedule. That's my concern. I just need to know. All right, so anything else?
For the comma.
I think that's it. Thank you.
Okay, we'll see you Thursday morning.
All right.
Well, nothing earth shattering this morning. I think the only one that may be a question, and I still think she'll get in, is the dog bite lady. The only issue that the only leg the state had to stand on to keep the FBI people out are the timeliness and beyond a deadline on discovery, which the dog bite lady was the same.
Yeah.
But the dog bite lady could be an issue. Depends on how the judge sees that. It does seem like maybe she was shopping around, looking to interject herself into a case as an expert versus being called upon. Of course, Jackson set that straight, but in reality, this lady did contact her friend in the DA's office saying, "Hey, I could help on this. I saw it in a newspaper article."
Yeah, I think you have the MIT versus GED. The guy's associate's degree with the police department. You did a good job saying that he was just called because he was an investigator on the case, not an expert. But they originally brought him up as an expert, but his qualifications don't qualify as expert. But he's testifying. These other experts, the FBI had brought him in, or this lady who just happened to hear about it. It's unfortunate that the defense in this murder trial possibly are not going to be able to bring these in. And Aunt Bev does have a clear disdain and a bias, it looks like, for allowing these people to destroy this case.
Well, I'm not going to argue that point. I don't know. I will say it is a judge is a gatekeeper on what evidence the jury hears. But there's rules of evidence, and it's not just they sit up there with their emotional opinion and make it where they're not supposed to anyway. But when it comes to an expert witness, you don't want just any general because they're coming and giving their opinion. They're not a material expert or material witness to the offense that's being discussed. So when an expert witness comes in, they've got to be accepted as an expert, so that whatever opinion they give, the jury can weigh that to make their decision or throw it out. And I don't believe it and not make their decision. The jury doesn't have to give it credibility. It's up to the juror to decide that. But the judge does need to make sure that. Let's go back to the trooper. The state did try to put him on the stand as an expert. But if he had not actually been involved in the investigation, there's no way he would have qualified as an expert witness. and the defense was good, and the judge rightfully so. They changed that scope to his testimony down to just what did you do? That's all we want to know. Your opinion is not so much accepted in the court. Now, these witnesses that we saw this morning, when they get on the stand, it is wholly their opinion. And I'll go back to Grandma from California. That she makes money by that's what she does. She's an expert witness and she makes money. She's not making the money these last two guys are making, but for dog bites, she's evidently been certified in a court or two as an expert. And once you get that certification, you can roll that over. One of the reasons the judge was asking, what other cases have you heard in the state of Massachusetts, is that she can go and look and see how the court handled their expertise and whether they were deemed or certified as an expert witness. In federal courts, in order for you to testify, you literally have to be certified as an expert, and it's a whole process, just like what you saw there of Voir and the judge making a decision as to whether you're an expert witness or not. But once you're certified in one court, federal court, it's much easier. That voir dire is a lot faster when you sit down and the court knows that you've been certified in a federal jurisdiction case prior, and the only thing they try to determine at that point is, whereas the certification that you have as an expert, does that pertain to the testimony that you're going to give in this case? I don't see the judge keeping the second two out. I don't think she'll keep the dog bite lady out either. I just think she may narrow the scope as to what she's able to talk about.
I mean, just the dog bite only is all you really need. The other two guys cover up the accident. You don't need her to say, oh, the accident was not consistent with the injuries on his body. She doesn't even need to testify to that. Just the marks on his arm is consistent with the dog bite, I think, is enough, because we heard how many people, police officers and people who are usually the people you would blindly trust, respected people in the community as law enforcement, they all said he did not come in the house. This had nothing to do with anything. They kind of suppressed anything that related to a dog possibly doing, biting his arm or anything that has something to do with John O'Keefe going into the house. These experts showing that it did not happen from the car. The scratches or contusions that happened to his arm are consistent with the dog. That's very damning to say. One, Karen Reed is innocent of not hitting John O'Keefe with her car and killing him and leaving him in the snow, but something else happened, and these other witnesses, this expert testimony contradicts what they were saying.
Well, why wouldn't, I mean, regardless of how she got here, what does it matter if she can offer expert witness testimony that, yes, it was a dog bite? Maybe I'm missing something here. I mean, I understand maybe she was shopping or whatever, but at the end of the day, she is rare to find. And I think it is crucial to this case. So, I mean, I don't understand why he was.
Well, it's the Rule 14, right? You have to let the other person know that you have a witness, so they have the time to prepare and, these kind of, or discredit or, do some research.
Oh, that's right. Okay. I'm sorry.
But yeah, or find their own witness, to their own expert, and let the state come in and says, this is what our expert says about it.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's a technical rule violation. It's important though, but it's a technical rule violation. It has really nothing to do with her credibility. It doesn't look good though if someone tries to force, and it's kind of the snake's oil salesman thing, where somebody's just like, well, I'll come in and you pay me enough money, I'll say what you want me to say, type of thing. Is what that looks like. It's a better analogy.
Yeah.
A hired gun. Give me enough money, I'll come in and tell you what you want to hear, and I'll use my credentials as a learned person to say so.
The Young Jerks podcast that Dr. Petero is usually on. He doesn't like to go on to Turtle Boy's show because he's not really a big fan of the profanity and stuff like that. He doesn't like the cussing and F words all the time and being derogatory about certain people. So Dr. Petero, which is an attorney in New York, usually shares this experience in legal profession. He's been following this case since the beginning on the Young Jerks, which is another show it's very similar to this one in the Boston area. And the Young Jerks just followed our show. So that's awesome. And they were just on yesterday with 8,000 people watching their show. So thank you to the Young Jerks.
Well, thank you for that. Unfortunately, Mr. Betterow, must be the reason he turned down my invite to come on the show. Because our language here is probably about the same as Turtle Boys.
I know, no shit. No, but he's if you've ever heard Mr. Petterow explain the case, he's very good. And we would like him on the show, and we will curve our language if he'd like to come on and talk about the show for sure. The case.
100% would love a. In fact, I like it when Lisa's on the show.
Yeah,
another legal mind on the show that looks at maybe some of the procedure stuff instead of the touchy-feely emotional part of it. Because unfortunately, when it comes to court cases, that doesn't come in as much as we see on TV.
Yeah, this one, as the defense is about to take the case starting Monday, this one is growing more and more attention. As a matter of fact, we just seen that Nancy Grace just picked up this court case like a couple days ago. You know, Nancy Grace is always covering these frame ups and, you know, lost people, lost children, and these kind of cases. So Nancy Grace picking it up. And, you know, if you're streaming and you just go to YouTube and you just search for Karen Reed, you know, in the morning, and you're trying to figure out who's streaming it, it used to be like Court TV and ABC, Boston, and there's a couple of them that pick up. Now, when you look in the morning, there's like 25 or 30 different people streaming it, and there's all kinds of people that are streaming it that are now catching on, as this case is, you know, more than just the local bloggers and podcasters and local journalists covering it. Now it's being covered nationally. So we do need to, you know, maybe try to get some guests on here that can maybe put a day in or two, not just Dante, our resident expert, but also get some other, you know, experts to actually come on and do the show with us. So that'll be interesting. Maybe we can put a couple feelers out and some invites over the weekend.
No, absolutely. Absolutely. I think that, you know what, legally, if anybody's kind of a nerd, like I'm a bit of a nerd when it comes to court proceedings and legal cases, in how arguments are made in court. This one is exceptional, and it's just going to be rare. If you're a nerd like me, you need to follow this one, or at least go back and watch it, because you won't. These are just not cases that are happening every day. You're not going to walk into a courtroom anywhere in America and sit down and listen to a case that's going this way. We really don't know how this is going to go. We really don't know what the defense is going to bring to bear, or what the judge is going to allow in for the jury to hear. And I'll go back to my statement yesterday. That's why I try to make my decisions in how this case is going just by what's being told on the stand, and not the ancillary stuff on the outside, because what's said on the outside may not be what the jury can hear. And I know we saw, well, the jury will do this, but I disagree. My experience is that juries do the right thing. They take that oath and their mandate as a jury. They usually take that part very, very seriously. It's rare for jurors not to follow judges' orders, in my opinion. So, my point is, the evidence that you hear, that we're hearing on the stand, is what the jury is hearing, and when they go back into that room and make a decision on Karen Reed's literal future of her life, that's the evidence that they're going to be weighing. And I'm still like you guys. They go back today. If I was on the jury, it'd either be hung or acquittal. There's no way I would put my name down on a
guilty,
a conviction. Yeah, just the state's got to bring it right. OJ, I believe OJ killed those two people, but the state didn't come right with that, and it's not because of OJ. And it's unfortunate that let's take the OJ case. It's unfortunate that the victims there that really didn't get justice, and somebody getting the death penalty or going to prison for the rest of their life for their brutal murders. It's not about them. It's about the rest of us, because if they can do it to them, if the state can be fuzzy on evidence against OJ Simpson, what are they going to do to Joe LaNue or John or Kingdom? we don't have the money to bring to bear. So whatever the state says is that's what we did. So just go ahead and dish us out our sentence and administrate justice to us. And that's just not what our system is about.
Yeah. Even if I have some money, I just rather my family just take that and support themselves in my absence instead of wasting it on a lost cause when I don't have a chance of winning anyway.
No, 100%. But our country goes back to that. That was one of the tenets of the independent Declaration of Independence, is that there was a time period that the colonists they had a trial by jury of their peers, and it was a true contest. But the Crown didn't like it because there was too many not guilties when they thought there should be some guilty. So they just changed the rules. When you were arrested there just prior in the early 1700s or 1770s, when you were arrested or you were accused of a crime, you didn't go to the local courthouse and sit with a jury of your peers. They arrested you and put you on a ship and took you out to sea and had a naval tribunal hire you. It was weird when they started doing that the Crown's prosecution or successful conviction rates skyrocketed. Weird, right? But that's just, again, that's administrating justice the way the state wants justice administrated versus it being a true contest. And the state has to really bring it to bear and has to have clean hands to take our freedoms away, is my opinion.
Yeah, I got a couple things to cover real quick. One of them was, before I get to some comments online that are being asked, Dante says that based on his limited experience with our show, we're pretty much like a church choir.
Well, Dante, I'm going to say that is the worst assessment I've seen. I usually take your assessments to heart, but that is the worst one that I've seen. There's a little bias there, I'm afraid.
And then Lisa says, you talk about legal shows. Joe Lanou and the crew have another great legal show tonight.
You know what? Tonight, we're going to jump on top of law enforcement's ability to do cash and asset seizures, how that actually works and why it started and what it's turned into. What do we have, how it's actually practiced today? There's a case out of Reno, Nevada that's been decided and it went the right way. But literally the law enforcement did roadside robbery of $86,000 from a man who's just traveling, did nothing else wrong. But we're going to dig into that. And that's something that old Joe Lanou has some experience in. I've seized quite a bit of money, assets, property, and other things, vehicles. So I understand how the process works. And be honest with you, I'm not a big fan of it. It was another thing that I think it's gone astray. But we're going to do that tonight. That's 9 to 11 Eastern on X. That's Joe Lanou, Night Court. If you're not following myself, give us a follow. Or John's my co-host as well. Give John a follow, and we'll get you an invite to it. But come join the conversation. Everybody's welcome to voice their opinion on our shows.
You're not a fan. I am interested to hear that.
And then an integrity beyond John's sweet tea bribes, it's clean. And in John's defense, he publicly acknowledged them. So,
hey, I don't lie. I'll tell you, I'll shoot straight. I did go the other day, and I did not get a free tea. Olivia wasn't working. I got to go back.
That's what at City Hall last night. I talked to this old man. He goes, he was like the actual one who started it and actually owns the building that the town hall is in. And he goes, they said, well, this is the guy to talk to. He goes, well, you ask me any question. My hearing ain't very good, so you have to speak up. But you ask me any question you want to, I'll tell you the truth. And I don't know the answer, I'll lie to you. And I was like, all right, well, there you go. You sound like my kind of people.
I don't know the answer. I'll tell you I don't know the answer.
Oh, yeah. No, just the experience from last night. But all right, we have a question on X, and this is from Daisy Drools. She said, with Aunt Bev knowing this about Dr. Wolf said in the Voir dire that he was hired by the Department of Justice and the FBI. Daisy Drools says, with Aunt Bev knowing this, can she deny him as witness?
Run that question again. Is there a place I can read that one? I'm not seeing the X on the feed.
I know it's not a feed. It's on Kingdom Radio. She responded. You know how like most of these bloggers are kind of posting little updates and sentences. So I started doing that today, and this is a comment to one of those. But here's the actual comment right here below you. Daisy Drool said, with Aunt Bev knowing this, can she deny him as a witness? And that's based on my post talking about Dr. Wolf. When Aunt Bev was asking him, a couple of questions, he said that he was hired by the Department of Justice and the FBI. Daisy was asking, now that knowing this, can she deny him as a witness because he said that?
No, I think it's common knowledge that this ARCA was contracted by the Department of Justice in a probe that's ongoing. In fact, there was a grand jury, and the outcome of that grand jury has not been made public yet. But I think what you're going to see on this is the only how to say this. The only penalty I think you're going to have because of a Rule 14 violation of timely discovery on these federal contractors is going to be that the jury's they're not going to be able to tell the jury that they're from the Justice Department, or this study that they did, or the work they did was originally contracted by the Department of Justice to conduct this study. They're going to just leave that out and not that be said. But no, I don't believe that she's going to be able to deny it. But since we're talking about Bev, she's got some issues, and Alan Jackson actually brought it up very well, in my opinion, talking about if she would just said, no, you violated Rule 14, so therefore none of it comes in. The judge also has to weigh the fairness to the witness, to the defendant. And he brought it up very well. Karen Reed has the right to cross-examine. Karen Reed has the right to bring in experts to refute the state's allegations or refute the state's testimony or the state's evidence against her. That is a very basic constitutional right. It's a big issue that Bev's going to have to weigh on an appeal. The state could prove the case and do a good job at it, but to have a violation of restricting her defense, and it'll be overturned on appeal before she gets her hair's dry from her shower at the state penitentiary. That's how fast it can go. So Bev is not going to want that to happen. She's going to weigh it out there. She's a professional judge, whether we like her profession or not, or agree with the way she does it. She's sat on the bench long enough to have enough of her cases go through the appellate process, and judges do not want their cases overturned. It affects their score. If they're elected, it can affect their whole job. They don't want cases overturned on appeal, especially on something that's known in the legal world is something so basic. So I don't expect, honestly, to see the ARCO guys have too much limitation. There may be some scope limiting on that. That's what they were talking about on the paragraphs, that for whether they can say that these injuries are consistent with the type of kinetic force they say they encountered. And that was about the weakest argument the state had. Lolly had on that. It's like, well, if I can get number 4 out of there, then I'd be happy, because he has no grounds. He'd like to get them all out, but he has absolutely no grounds to get anything else out of that. And Karen Reed has the absolute constitutional, just like the rest of us, not just Karen Reed, has the right to bring evidence to bear for her and on her defense, and to counter anything that the state says. It's a contest in these courts. It's not an administrative process. It was meant to be an adversarial contest, and she has the right to compete.
Yeah, and then also, if you go to the Kingdom Radio on X, Kingdom Radio TX, there's a poll over there. It says, if the trial ended today, are we thinking Karen Reed is guilty or not guilty? So far, we have 157 votes. From yesterday, 96.2% says not guilty, but there is 3.8% that is saying guilty. So it's not 100% not guilty, but that's the poll so far on X.
Yeah, I've actually done some thought on this. If you look at it, take all the emotions out, take all the dust and noise that surrounds it. If you just look at the testimony, if you believe the state forensic folks that the tail light was broken, and that tail light truly was scattered in the front yard the way it was, it's going to be hard for you to get around and do an acquittal, quite honestly. Because at that point, it didn't happen in the house. And if you believe it, that's where it was found and not placed there, then you believe that the police may have done a crappy investigation, but they didn't plant evidence. So therefore, whether the law enforcement or the state did a very good investigation, Karen Reed did strike O'Keefe, and that's where he expired. For those people that believe that part, that's going to be your 3%. Anything else is going to be nothing. It doesn't matter. Whether it's right or wrong, that's a piece of evidence you can't get around. And that, in my opinion, is the linchpin to the state's case, is that if those fragments of tail light were around his body, in the crime scene as they described, which was very poorly. But if you believe that, then you have to convict in this case. If you don't believe that, then there's no way you can convict. It has to be an acquittal. And that's kind of the way I'm sizing it up right now.
Yeah. Well, there's just some people that are on, Team McCabe and, Team Albert. And there's just certain people who are in that inner circle that I think they have an invested interest and they would like to see Karen Reed guilty. They've thought that from the beginning. They're connected in some way to someone who's in the family or something. And if you're searching on X and if you have the Karen Reed feeds up on X Pro like I do, there are some people that it doesn't even matter what the hell you said. Kind of like John O'Keefe's mom, or John O'Keefe's brother. It doesn't matter what evidence that's brought out there and what witness that's coming out there. It doesn't matter what they're saying. They are not waving on their thing that Karen Reed is guilty, and they're waiting for justice for their brother because they know for a fact she did it, and you can't say nothing to change their mind anyway. Those people are just out there. And it's a shame.
No, and those are, but I'm not even talking about those, because you got the other side that all police are bad, all police are crooked, and everybody's framed. So you've got the two groups out there. I'm talking about the common sense or the rational person in the middle that's going to say, I'm going to look at the evidence and make a decision. If you look at the evidence and you accept the fact that those taillight lens pieces were found around his body in that front yard, you really can't go any other place. You'd have to convict at that point. But if you don't accept it, or you question it, or you're not sure to reasonable certainty is what the law would say, then there's no way you could convict, in my opinion, because there's nothing else out. The state doesn't have anything else out there that really depicts their case. That's the only bit of forensic should be empirical evidence that says that his body came in contact with her vehicle as something similar, maybe not exactly like, but something similar, as the state alleges. That is the linchpin of their case, is what I'm saying. I don't know that if you don't buy that, or if you don't hang your hat on that you could absolutely. There's nothing else out there. There's not another piece of evidence. The reconstruction guy, BS, nothing to it. The way the vehicle was seized, I'm suspect on that. McCabe's testimony, I'm suspect on that. The way the vehicle was stored, everything after that, I'm suspect on. But if I buy the fact that those taillight lens pieces were found around that body, then I have to convict and just have to put everything else as these guys are incompetent, but this is what happened. So taking aside the emotional part and people who have emotional relations invested in there, my personal opinion is that if you accept the taillight, she's guilty. If you don't accept the taillight, there's nothing else you could find her guilty on.
Yeah, the list that you gave, I would even continue to say the list goes on and on, because Brian Higgins, his testament was, Brian Albert, his testimony was, just the Michael Proctor, his testimony was damning. Even Trooper Buchanan, it seemed like he was doing a good job when the Commonwealth was asking him, but as soon as he got crossed, he was like, just every single person that has been brought up in this case, their testimony is like, oh God, I don't know, that wasn't that great. And moving to the end, I think yesterday when you had these experts was Celebrate, and the day before, or whatever, Friday or Thursday, the Celebrate experts, I think that was probably the best testimony that says Jennifer McCabe wasn't involved. Therefore, whoever has this theory that John O'Keefe was inside the house, let's just erase that we were texting at 2:27, and Brian Albert and Brian Higgins were also messaging each other about the same time. 5 minutes before, they were messaging each other at that time. Just take that out of your head, and the Celebrate people are just telling you that didn't happen. I think that was probably the best testimony for the Commonwealth so far.
I don't disagree with you on that, but I'll go back again. What I'm trying to say is that you don't, whether you believe McCabe, you don't believe McCabe, you think Higgins is a jackass, Higgins is not a jackass. None of that matters. If I was on the jury, I'd have to convince myself that I believe that they did find the taillight pieces where they said they found them, and she's convicted. If I don't believe they found the taillight pieces where she didn't find them, I don't know what happened, but I can't convict her. That's kind of where I'm going with that. Is that it boils down to that one. Y'all have heard me say this before. There's a milestone or a rock or there's an obstacle in an investigation that I have to have an answer to. I can't ignore it. And for me, it's the taillight pieces there. If they were there that day, which I can't say, the state has convinced me that I can trust that they were there that day. But if they were found by the body, then there's no other explanation. Nothing else holds water to me. It's conviction. But if you believe that any of that's hinked up, any of that was planted there, obviously, she's not convicted, and then you're gonna have to go. The state's gonna have to go down the road trying to figure out who O'Keefe's actual killer is. Which I will also say that if she gets an acquittal, O'Keefe will never have justice for the killer.
True that. Let me show you something. I was texting you guys yesterday a bunch of stuff that Better Row was talking about, and here's one from an attorney that covers this case. And this is when we're talking about Gallagher. Y'all familiar with Gallagher? Gallagher.
Yes.
I think he's a lieutenant or something. This is in the Karen Reed.
Yeah, he's a Canton police lieutenant, I believe.
Canton police, yeah. So we're going to play it, but he was talking about when they removed the taillight from the Lexus, that there was some pieces broken off that had fell to the ground when they removed the taillight. Now, every single piece of that taillight was found at the crime scene of 38 Fairview, and then the person, what was it? Her name, the lady who put the puzzle together. Would you call her the Peter Pan?
Oh, yeah, Peter Pan.
Oh yeah, Peter Pan, the puzzle girl.
Yeah, Peter Pan put the puzzle together, picked a pipe of peppers, and put the puzzle together. In this case, from Mr. Proctor, but they put this puzzle together with all the pieces that were found. There was no pieces that said, oh, well, these are the ones that fell on the ground in the Sallyport. Every single piece was was found in one of the 5 different times that they visited. And let's listen to his testimony right here about the pieces falling off.
Facilitate the removal of that light.
Manipulate was the issue.
Yes.
And during the course of the removal of that light, that taillight was broken, correct?
That's correct.
And shattered.
Yes.
Parts of it that were falling under the ground.
I don't think there was anything falling on the ground at that point.
At that point.
So now we do have evidence that that taillight, in some way, shape, form, or fashion, was broken or broken more once it was inside the Sallyport in Canton PD's custody.
You're gonna have to rephrase that. I don't understand the broken more part.
During the removal process, that light was broken even more.
No.
Yeah, the facial expressions are horrible.
So that was pretty much it. He said that they were broken when they took the pieces out, and then all of a sudden it's like, oh, okay, so there was pieces that were falling on the ground. Oh, on the ground? No, broken. No, broken. No, it's like, okay, but that was someone had brought this up yesterday and say, hey, what about the part where Gallagher said that the pieces were broken? And when you're watching this, you're not putting all these pieces of the puzzle together like Peter Pan. But when someone points it out, you're like, damn, that is interesting. Let's go back and listen to it. But that was from Law Nerd, who she's a lawyer and she just covers cases. That's all she does. And she has about 38,000 people who watches the show every day. So interesting. She's a lawyer.
Peter Pan also testified that she only had a few pieces that she could put together, the mechanical term that she used, but there were other pieces that did not fit mechanically. So it makes me wonder where those pieces that don't fit mechanically, where are they?
Well, I mean, we all know from experience in life, if you were to break a glass on your kitchen floor and you want to try to recover all those pieces and put it back together, I mean, there's certain types of breaks where the fragments are so small you don't find them. And then if you were to try to put that back together as a puzzle, you'd obviously have gaps. So I don't know that that's all that strange. In fact, I would find it even more suspect if they recovered every single piece of this tail light and were able to put it back together, which, with the exception of one or two pieces, it looks like that's what they did, which, again, I would find that suspect.
Me too.
But
You're
we're
able
talking
to
about
actually find every piece.
but we're talking about polycarbonate, not glass. From what little bit of research I've done, it doesn't break into very small, minute pieces like you think glass shards or whatever you want to call them was my thing, that they would break in like bigger pieces.
Yeah, you know what? I couldn't tell you. I don't know about polycarbonate. I haven't done any research on it, but I just think that any fracture has an opportunity to lose a bit of material that would be between the two pieces that are fractured. So when you put them back together, that may not be a perfect match. And that's what she's looking for. In fact, she looks at it under a microscope to see that it does, the puzzle pieces fit exactly perfect, which I just don't, and I haven't done the research on polycarbonate like you have, but once again, to find every piece on a break on a vehicle that was in a scenario that they, on a scenario that, as they say, is this man was struck. She drove away. She drove to another person's house. She drives back to her house. Then she drives to her parents' house, some far away. It gets put on a vehicle or transport rollback. It's taken to a police department. It's put inside all the time. This broken, as the state alleges, this broken lens is back there, and then you find all the pieces. Come on, I don't know. That to me doesn't ring to be likely.
No. Well, the part where the microscopic small pieces were found in John O'Keefe's shirt, that part is like, you're just doing too much. I mean, you didn't have to do that. I mean, let's say you're covering it up, you're not covering it up. The pieces were found, the pieces were planted, whatever. But the microscopic pieces of polycarbonate taillight that was found in his shirt, that it hit it so hard that there was microscopic pieces in his sweatshirt. I don't know, man. I think you're just doing too much that one. And the piece of hair that's found on the rear right quarter panel just sitting there, you're doing too much on that one. I mean, you didn't have to find all the pieces, because if she would have broke it and it was broke like the honest police officer, like most police officers are, don't want to lie and don't want to be a part of this lie that's at the Dighton Police Department. He said, look, it was cracked. It wasn't fully broken out. But then you see it's fully broken out. There's a chance that maybe some stuff blew off down the road that's unrecovered. It's on the highway somewhere and something. But to find every single piece, and every single piece has to be out in the yard. If you just put a few little pieces of taillight in the yard, I think you would have did better than putting every fucking piece of the taillight out there.
Yeah, like I say,
if it's planted.
Everything about the taillight, which is the problem for the state, that, and to me, that's the hinge point. Everything about the whole taillight in the crime scene, it's either they were incompetent and they didn't document correctly, and now they're coming back and trying to reconstruct it out of their mind's eye, which is inappropriate, or somebody tampered with evidence. Either one of those is not good for the state. When the state could have, if everything was above board, you would have a crime scene map where you would be able to go out there and take these little pieces of plastic that they said were found there and lay them out, and then take a step back and see it for yourself. They didn't do that. So now we have to rely on these knucklehead police officers that get up there. They're not very good on the witness stand. Like that guy there with the defense, I bet he didn't make any faces when the prosecution was asking him questions, but he's like looking like a jackass. So you're relying on these people to convince a jury of 12 that this lady should go to prison for either the rest of her life or the majority of the better part of the rest of her life. And I think that the state is backwards on it. And I also go back to, I think that's why you're finding microscopic bullshit and as much testimony as they can rely on the crime lab. Because I don't believe the crime lab is in that. They get what they get. They analyze what they analyze. I don't think they've got a dog in the fight on this one. Not like maybe the state police do.
No, I'm with you on that one. Here's what Karen Reed said as she left the courtroom today.
One day left. How do you feel about their case
against you?
How do I feel about their case against me? There is no case against me.
After 8 weeks.
After 8 weeks, it's smoke and mirrors, and it's going through my private life and trying to contrive a motive that was never there.
Have you thought about what it would be like to be on the witness stand yourself?
Yeah, I have. I'd like to fill in some holes and correct some lies, but it's up to the attorneys, and they'll make the call probably at the 11th hour, and I'm there or not there.
You're lobbying though for your chance to testify?
I'm an outspoken person, and I've never not been able to speak up for myself and my defense, except when it matters the most. I've got to rely on them and their expertise, and I'll defer to the attorneys.
Alan wants you, hon.
So there's that.
Yeah, I don't see a scenario where the defense has to put her on the stand. I just don't.
think it would be good. Her personality is kind of, I'm not going to say Valley Girl kind of stuff, but her personality is kind of like, I can see how it could possibly rub a jury member the wrong way or bring up some kind of bias. Like, I don't like her attitude or the way that she carries herself or that little smug smirk. I don't like that. Not really the content of what she's saying. I think she can only hurt herself at this point. When you already got the case won, why would you get up there and possibly, ruin it in some way? Even though what you're saying is good, Lowley's going to he's going to bring up a bunch of stuff.
Yeah. When you sit on the stand, you're going to expose yourself to cross examination, and that's never good. You're right. I didn't like the way she looked at me, or I don't like the way she looked at the attorney, which can happen.
John,
when they get up.
Yeah, I don't know. I think her attorneys have done a good enough job. I don't think she should get up there.
Yeah, I think also. Side note, side by. I think what we should also do starting Monday is after the Karen Reed trial. As soon as it's over with, we should immediately start with an after party and an X space with StreamYard as well. So all of these people that I'm seeing right now on X, we can. I see that there is one or two people who have started an after party on an X space. I think that we should start an X space as a Karen Reed trial day, whatever after party, and get people into that space in addition to the show starting Monday.
Sounds good to me.
Yeah, there's just so many people commenting on X. It's crazy. And do y'all have any stats of people who have an X space up right now? How they're doing right now?
I'm not looking. I hadn't seen. You know what? I haven't seen any comments off my X. I'm going to look at my live feed now and see what's up with that.
Not
usually
on
X, I see 'em.
Are you using the X Pro?
Yes.
Yeah, I have the X Pro. Let me show you my screen. So
I know what you're talking about. I'm just saying I haven't seen any comments on my feed. I'm looking to see if there are any there.
So yeah, the feed, I don't think any of it like the different people and Bettero and the Young Jerks and stuff. But there's just a bunch of people who are commenting. So throughout the show, I'll either post or I'll comment to someone, and then my actual personal one, like if you go to the notifications, there's this bunch of people that are commenting and stuff to the things that I'm posting or sharing.
Yeah, I got you. They're not actually commenting in the feed, they're commenting on the post.
Yeah, so okay. I was thinking what we could probably do is say stay tuned after and to all of these comments and get all these people who are on X anyway to listen to the actual X space, or even maybe do it during the show. So people who maybe they can't watch the trial or after the trial, they can go to the X space and participate.
I get a lot of requests for recaps on this. So I think an after party show would not be a bad idea.
Yeah. I mean, if we're going to be sitting here talking like we are right now and talking about the case and things like that, it'd be nice to have people in the space, hands raised up and people kind of sharing their opinions. I think that'd be pretty cool for building the show. Especially on the last week. This is going to be the last week, and I think it'll be the best week, and more people are coming in. We definitely need to expand it to X Spaces. Special edition.
Well, you don't have them very often, but I'll give you that. That's a good idea because you're right. The defense is going to be rebutting the state's witnesses, so a recap would be good. We can go back and pull or talk about and pull audio from what the state said on these certain facts that the defense is going to be disputing versus what the defense says about it. So yeah, I think it's a good idea. You have them
but
every now and then, Kingdom. Every now and then.
just the audience participation, where it's not like they have to watch somebody's show. No matter what show they're watching, now they can participate and they can voice their opinion instead of just typing their opinion. I think it'd be great to do it immediately following. So I'm gonna probably spend the weekend and kind of push that out as people are commenting. Do like a copy and paste thing. Join us for the after something on X or something. So let's put that together and schedule that one for maybe starting Monday when the defense starts.
Sounds good.
Perfecto. And then we can start advertising that. What else do we have as we close it up here? It's early day. It's 11:27. It's not even lunchtime. Alan Jackson did say it was going to take a total of about 2 hours. I remember when Yannetti was like, Your Honor, I think it's going to be maybe 15 minutes for this guy and maybe 20. And then Alan Jackson was like, just a total of about 2 hours. And then Aunt Bev today said, well, if I'd known it was going to be this fast, I would have brought the jury in for later. It's like Alan Jackson did say it's going to take about 2 hours total. Just 3 witnesses.
Well, I think she anticipated that in her mind, she was going to give the state the latitude to essentially cross-examine these witnesses. But Alan Jackson cut that off pretty early. And he's right. He's absolutely right. They shouldn't get two opportunities at the well to take a drink.
2 bites out of the apple.
That's another one. 2 bites out of the apple. They only get one.
Yeah. So yeah, today was very good. The first lady, when she was talking about her experience, just the way that Alan Jackson asked the questions for foundation. Now, like, can you tell us what experience, if any, that you had with going to high school? Okay, and then where he's just like, permission to grab this, approach the bench to show him a paper, and then back and forth of this procedure. Like Alan Jackson was like, can you just tell me what education you have after high school? Go. And then they just explain the whole thing. It's like there's a faster way to do it than all of this fucking back and forth that Lally does. He bores the shit out of you with it, right?
He does me.
It's like,
but yeah, nobody's ever accused him of being entertaining. I promise you.
But just let the witness talk and tell you what their experiences are. And if they leave out something, ask them about something. But the way Alan Jackson's presenting it is way better than Lally. And I think for next week's show, what we've seen today, if that's any example at all of how the defense is going to, when it's their turn, how the case is going to be, it's going to be way more exciting than it has been. Even though we're all looking for the cross-examination. Let me know when the cross-examination starts. That's the part I want to watch. Next week is going to be, I think, great. And it's going to be the best part of the trial when the defense actually takes the stands with these undeniable experts, and they're going to be saying some stuff that's very damning. But they won't get the last word, though, right? The Commonwealth gets the last word at the end when the defense rests, right?
They do. They get a rebuttal.
Like closing arguments.
Yes.
Prosecution will say their piece. The defense will say, no, this is what we think it happens. But then the prosecution always will have the last word.
Yeah, right. That last word is limited, but they do get the last word. You're right.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Oh, Big Ron. Make sure you click like and help promote the algorithm. That's right, folks. Right now, we have 335 active listeners and watchers. I mean, it's not 7,000, but we appreciate each and every one of you. Like I was telling Dante earlier, as he had paused the show and he was watching and catching up and had made a comment that was something that we had covered 20 minutes ago. I said that how much we appreciate Dante's participation, his expertise, and his contributions to the show. Just wanted to go out there and say we really appreciate you, Dante, and everyone, the night crew and all the people who are participating and following it and sharing it. We appreciate each and every one of you. And for the new people who are coming in, like and share it with a friend. We're trying to grow this, but we do appreciate each and every one of you for participating and contributing. And
no, absolutely. And if we're talking about algorithms, a repost gives you a higher score than a like, but repost and share. We appreciate it.
Yeah, 100%. So, but that's all I have for today. Anything else we didn't cover you'd like to talk about?
I can't think of anything.
Are you sure, John?
I'm sure.
All right. Well, that's cool. Well, we'll see you not tomorrow because tomorrow is a federal holiday. Is it George Floyd Day?
Yeah, June.
It's not Juneteenth.
Juneteenth.
Juneteenth ain't George Floyd Day. That's when they freed the slaves, right? Emancipation or something. Is that right?
Correct. I believe it's when the word got to Texas that slaves had been freed.
Juneteenth, but it's a national holiday.
Yes,
And
banks are closed.
Yes.
Yeah. As of last year or something, or recent.
Yeah, recently. It hasn't been a national holiday throughout most of my life, but I'm from Texas, and it's always been celebrated in Texas, whether it was a national holiday or not.
Okay, good. So yeah, tomorrow's a holiday, so we're going to start bright and early on Thursday morning. So definitely stay tuned, and we're going to have some more exciting things to cover, and we're going to hear Judge Bev's decision on these expert witnesses, whether they are going to be able to say and what the scope of what they're going to be able to say is. I'd imagine they'll probably cover that either in the morning before trial, or they're going to cover that after the jury leaves.
Yeah, that'll be interesting.
You know, and she may not do a verbal declaration. She may send that out in a written order to both sides, and we may just have to watch it transpire to see what her actual decision was. Just like she did with Voir on Friday.
Yeah, Dante said George Floyd gave his life in the fight for Juneteenth recognition. So, and then that's one opinion, I think. And Big Ron said it was only since Biden was elected. So that's we got a report if that's the beginning of it. Unconfirmed, but that's the report. Well, that's all we got, folks. We're definitely going to catch you. I love doing this. It does take a lot of time. To be honest with you, I'll be happy when the trial is over. It's consumed a lot of my life, but it has definitely been something I look forward to, and I'm definitely looking forward to the conclusion and the aftermath of this show.
Yeah.
Welcome to Michael Proctor on Kingdom Radio.
Appears to be a picture of a toy Santa Claus. I never received a gift. I never asked for a gift. My wife never received a gift. She never asked for a gift.
On Santa's naughty list.
Wasn't sharing anything specific on cases with my family or anyone. She's a whack job. Cunt. CUNT. States, okay, that's fucked up. She hot at least. Yes, she's a babe. No ass. Is that chick a smoke? Nutbag, as Chief would say. She's got a leaky balloon knot. Leaks poo. Funny, I'm going through his retarded client's phone. No nude so far. I hate that man. I truly hate him. Sergeant Mechanic liked it.
Like what?
Going through his retarded client's phone, sir.
Did the warrant say anything about looking for nudes?
Objection.
Did it say something for nudes?
No, Your Honor.
No, it didn't.
That would be an abuse.
Hey, McFly,
You indicated 15th, correct?
what do you think you're doing? Hey, I'm talking to you, McFly, you Irish bug. Hello? Hello? Anybody home? Hey, think, McFly, think.
You indicated 15th, correct? You indicated 15th, correct?
I respond, said the Alberts beat the shit out of O'Keefe, left him for dead. And the very least, it's suspicious. That's another animal we won't be able to prove. She's gross. Trooper DeChico, oh, fuck her, bitch. I text my wife, waiting to lock this whack job up.
Fucking mud in my shoes. No crew's gonna be looking for him.
That's another animal we won't be able to prove. I called earlier. Mom was puking in the background. This is your livelihood. And the very least, it's suspicious.
I hate that man. I truly hate him.
Mhm.
Correct?
Correct.
You didn't say I dislike him, disagree with him. You said I hate him. Correct?
Correct, sir.
That's a visceral response to someone who's just doing a job. Most important early in the investigation, because that's when the most things are up in the air. There's the cloud, the fog of not knowing exactly what the truth is. In other words, Trooper Proctor, you don't get to pick a suspect and then try to find evidence to support your choice.
Correct.
But in this case, it's exactly what you did, isn't it?
Rookie move, not going into a meeting with the ME and getting that homicide determination. Dear God, WTF, what the hell is inconclusive about the whole thing? Of course, it's undetermined. She was a whack job. Yeah, but there'll be some serious charges brought on the girl.
Okay, you got 10 feet, closing. 10 feet, easy. Hold it straight, get against the line.
You were looking for naked photographs of Miss Reed on a Wednesday night as you sat in your office at 9:44 p.m.
So in this video footage, I could tell you that the video is triggered by motion to record.
She said when this is all over, she wants to get you a thank you gift. And I respond, get Elizabeth one. Elizabeth's my wife. If you like women who shit themselves, Christ, it was on BWC, which is body worn camera.
I saw that there was some damage to the right rear taillight. To my best ability and recollection, that taillight was not completely damaged. It was cracked and a piece was missing, but not completely damaged. But not completely damaged. But not completely damaged.
Follow the Karen Reed murder trial on King